Chapter 16:16. Shua. Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in the holy capital of the Qi dynasty. She put away her spirit boat and flew in the direction of the Four Academies Grand Meeting. In the holy capital of the Qi dynasty, not far from the Four Academies Grand Meeting, a group of people was walking around in boredom. There's nothing interesting in the holy capital of the Qi dynasty. Song Yan, who was walking at the front, was impatient. Her eyes swept over the streets of the holy capital of the Qi dynasty. She turned a deaf ear to the scene of people hawking their wares. What good things could there be in the secular world of the true Spill continent? The only chance to obtain some treasures was destroyed by an unappreciative woman. And senior brother Yin Yu was protecting her. Thinking of Yin Yuju's reprimand and protection of her, Song Yan's heart burned with anger. At this moment, she glanced over and saw Luo Qingtong rushing towards the Four Academies Grand Meeting. It's her. Seeing Luo Qingtong's figure, Song Yan's eyes turned cold. Then she laughed. What a coincidence. She thought that this woman wouldn't participate in the Four Academies Grand Meeting. If that was the case, she wouldn't have bothered to waste energy on her. She didn't expect her to rush over here. What? Did she want to catch up with the Four Academies Grand Meeting and get the chance to enter the hidden world? Song Yan's eyes turned. She had just left the Four Academies Grand Meeting and didn't know that the situation inside had changed greatly. Feng Wan had revealed his absolute strength and suppressed everyone. She thought that the Empire of Qin had the upper hand. After all, the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy had a true dragon like Ma Chenyi from the Empire of Qin, and a Sage Realm powerhouse. Thinking that Luo Qingtong was also from the Empire of Qin, Song Yan's eyes turned. Then she sneered and said to the people of the Breeze Pavilion, "Go and stop her. Don't let her enter the Four Academies Grand Meeting." She pointed at Luo Qingtong, who was rushing towards the venue of the Four Academies. She would make it so that the other party wouldn't be able to make it in time for this grand meeting of the Four Academies. Let's see how the other party would snatch senior brother Falling Moon from her in the future. Alright. The group of people from the Breeze Pavilion glanced at Luo Qingtong, but they didn't care. She looked like a student from the Sacred Institute who had come to participate in the Four Academies Grand Banquet. Yi Lingchen had no idea how she had offended Song Yan. However, since the latter had given the order, they would naturally do as he said. As for the girl, he was just a student of the Saint Institute. So what if he stopped him? A group of people rushed in front of Luo Qingtong. Before Luo Qingtong could enter the four-courtyard conference, they blocked her at the door. Shua. Luo Qingtong rushed to the front of the venue. She could already vaguely hear the sounds coming from inside. The words Great Yong and the Empire of Qin were mixed in, sounding extremely sonorous. It was obvious that people from Great Yong and the Empire of Qin were fighting inside. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. She was about to rush in through the main door. At this moment, a group of people blocked her way. Sorry, I'm afraid you won't be able to enter this student of the Saint Institute. A group of people from the Breeze Pavilion stood in front of her, blocking her way to the entrance of the venue. Chapter 16:17. In fact, there was no such rule at all. These people from the Breeze Pavilion were just looking for a reason to stop Luo Qingtong. As for whether she could tell that they were deliberately making things difficult for her. So what if she could tell? If they didn't let her in, then she couldn't enter. Get out of the way. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She looked at these people blocking her way, and naturally knew that they were deliberately making things difficult for her. Although she didn't know why they were doing this. At this time, Luo Qingtong didn't have the mood to find out the reason behind it. She took a step forward, and was about to force these people from the Breeze Pavilion to retreat. Seeing this, the expressions of the people from the Breeze Pavilion changed. They looked at Luo Qingtong with cold and angry eyes. She actually dared to talk back to them? I said you can't go in. Otherwise, blame us for taking action. They looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and said coldly. She really didn't know what was good for her. If they didn't let her in, then she should have just left. She actually wanted to force her way in. She really had a death wish. The group looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold expression. Not far away, Song Yan looked at all this and sneered with disdain. She really didn't know what was good for her. She was just a person from the secular world. Who did she think she was? She even dared to ask the people from the Breeze Pavilion to get out of the way. She really didn't know what was good for her. Song Yan was waiting to see how she would be taught a lesson. As for the 4 Academies Grand Tournament, she could forget about entering. Song Yan sneered. Luo Qingtong looked at these people blocking her way, and her last bit of patience was exhausted. Attack. She looked at the people standing in front of her, and the curve of her lips suddenly curled up coldly. Fine. I'll do as you wish. Boom. In the 4 Academies Grand Tournament, Feng Wan stood in the arena. The aura around her was violent and cold. She raised her hand and pointed in the direction of Ma Chenyi. She sneered and said, "What? The Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin doesn't dare? Since you don't dare, then admit defeat." The smile on Feng Wan's lips was cold. In any case, even if the other party admitted defeat, he wouldn't be able to escape her attacks. She would not let any of these people from the Empire of Qin and Great Chu leave alive. It was just a matter of dying sooner or later. Ma Chenyi admitting defeat to her was exactly what she wanted. It would save her a lot of energy, and she would be able to see the humiliated expressions of the people of the Empire of Qin. Why not? As she thought about it, the smile on her lips became even colder. On the other side, Ma Chenyi had already stood up. Who said I was going to admit defeat? The young man's temperament was gentle and elegant, but his aura was steady and had a rare aura of a king. He looked coldly at Feng Wan. If Great Yong wants to fight, then let's fight. Your Highness. The members of the royal family who had accompanied Ma Chenyi were so anxious that they were sweating profusely. Your Highness. Feng Wan's strength has already surpassed the Saint Realm. You are only at the Saint Realm. Even if you have the aura of the true dragon bloodline, you have just come out of seclusion not long ago. Your aura and the strength of the Saint Realm have not completely merged. Your Highness, please reconsider. Your Highness, please think for the sake of the Empire of Qin and the royal family. You can't be hurt. The crowd tried to dissuade him, but Ma Chenyi raised his hand and stopped them. Chapter 16-18. Ma Chenyi's expression was firm and resolute. A cold and resolute expression appeared on his youthful and calm face. Feng Wan has revealed his strength at this moment. Previously, he had recklessly dispatched troops to 2 dynasties. I'm afraid that great changes have already occurred in the Empire of Qin and Great Chu. This prince will hold her back. You all immediately return to the Empire of Qin. In addition, tell Imperial Father that no matter what, he cannot hand over the people related to Luo Qingtong. Feng Wan's thoughts are sinister. Since he has already set his sights on Great Chu and the Empire of Qin, he will definitely not let this matter rest. There's no point in handing over the people. He will only be labeled as a coward. Ma Chenyi's voice was neither fast nor slow as he made arrangements for the people of the Empire of Qin. His status as the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin was definitely not undeserved. Even if he hadn't seen through 80% of Feng Wan's plan, he had already seen through 60%. Therefore, he absolutely could not admit defeat. Otherwise, he was afraid that none of the people of the Empire of Qin would be able to return alive. Moreover, he looked coldly in the direction of Feng Wan. Luo Qingtong still hadn't arrived. Although he didn't dare to believe it, Ma Chenyi had to admit that the possibility of Luo Qingtong's misfortune was too great. The young girl had saved him from danger and saved him from his predicament. His strength all depended on her. That was why he was able to recover and break through to the Shang realm. People said that the true dragon of the Empire of Qin had been dormant for many years. Once it rose, it would soar out of the abyss and roar to the 9 heavens. But who would have known that he was able to break out of his predicament completely because of Luo Qingtong's help? Without Luo Qingtong's help, there wouldn't be today's true dragon of the Empire of Qin. Feng Wan had harmed her. He definitely wouldn't let him off. Even if he had to sacrifice his life, he would make him pay the price. Leave. As he spoke, he swept his body and was about to leap onto the arena in front of him. Right at this moment, boom. A loud noise suddenly came from the entrance of the venue. Then, with a muffled bang, a figure instantly flew out from the gate, coughing up blood as it brushed against the ground. It flew for nearly a kilometer before crashing heavily into the ground not far from the spectator stands. Soon after, a figure strode in from the main entrance. In a cold voice he stated, "To deal with your great Yong, is there any need for His Imperial Highness, the Crown Prince, to take action?" "I'll do it." Following this voice, Ma Chen-yi, Grand Principal, Yuan Hu Sima-ju, and the others all looked towards the direction of the entrance in surprise. "Qingtong. Baby. Boss." Everyone's voice was filled with joy. Little Overlord Yuan Sima-ju and the others were crying tears of joy. "Boss. It's Boss. She's fine. Boss is fine." Everyone hugged each other. From the initial apprehension to despair and grief, and then to the current surprise and joy, their emotions fluctuated wildly. There was simply no way to control their emotions. Boss didn't die. She's fine. She made it. Qingtong. Ma Chen-yi looked at the figure who stepped through the gate and walked straight towards them. The emotions in his eyes fluctuated violently. There was a faint flicker of water inside. Even someone as calm as Ma Chen-yi couldn't control himself in front of such a huge fluctuation of emotions. Luo Qingtong was fine. This was probably the best news he had heard in his life. Chapter 16-19. Fortunately, she's fine. You little doll. He looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong, crying and laughing at the same time. This stinky girl worried him to death. Damn it. The next time he approved her leave, he would be a pig. That's not right. This little doll will go to the hidden world in the future. She doesn't need him to approve her leave. Thinking of the Grand Principal, he felt depressed. Doesn't this mean that he is destined to lose face in the future? While everyone from the Great Qin Empire was so excited that they were unable to control themselves, on the arena, Feng Yuan's gaze was cold as he looked at the young woman floating over. Luo Qingtong. You're finally not a coward anymore. Are you here to die? She sneered at Luo Qingtong. The latter narrowed her eyes at her and didn't reply. She just raised her hand and threw a black package over. Feng Yuan, Empress of Great Yong. Luo Qingtong's voice was indifferent. This is a small gift I prepared for you. I hope you like it. Deliberately mystifying. Feng Yuan sneered and looked at the black package that Luo Qingtong threw over. He raised his hand and caught it. With her strength, she wasn't afraid of Luo Qingtong playing tricks. She wanted to scare her? Dream on. However, just as her hand touched the package, in an instant, pung, the package exploded, and the two things inside rolled out. In an instant, the smell of blood filled the air. This is... Feng Yuan looked at the two things that rolled out of the package in shock. They were two human heads. They were the heads of the two saint-level ministers that she had sent to attack Great Chu and the Empire of Qin. Luo Qingtong. You. Are you surprised? Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. She looked at Luo Qingtong's eyes, which were filled with blood-red light, but cold to the core. There was not the slightest hint of a smile in his eyes. There's an even bigger surprise waiting for you. You have to stay calm. Right. Luo Qingtong looked at her indifferently and smiled. The people you sent to Great Chu and Great Yong are all dead. Great Yong has already been destroyed. Luo Qingtong's red lips parted slightly. The distance between Deqi and the three dynasties was quite far, and there was also a huge mountain range separating them. Naturally, the news would not reach them so quickly. She didn't mind giving Feng Yuan a surprise first. Impossible. If the two kills that Luo Qingtong had just thrown out were shocking to Feng Yuan, then it would be shocking. Then what Luo Qingtong said next to her was unbelievable. That's impossible. Within Great Yong, she had used forbidden techniques to increase her strength and vassals loyal to her. Among them, there were several saint-level experts. Even if the people of Great Chu and Great Qin realized her scheme and joined forces to attack Great Yong, it would be impossible for them to shake the foundation of her nation. How could it be destroyed by someone? Moreover, it was in such a short time. How long had it been since she left Great Yong? Feng Yuan was not willing to believe it at all. Luo Qingtong. Don't think that this can confuse my mind. I will never believe your words. In Feng Yuan's view, Luo Qingtong deliberately said these words to attack her. She would never believe it. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a figure hurriedly walked in from outside. What she said is true. Chapter 1620. Your Majesty, this is a report from the border. Great Yong has been destroyed. It's the Blackfield that sent out troops. Ming Zun personally took action and destroyed the holy capital in a day. In fact, Yi Qianxian had only taken action for a few seconds. But this was something that outsiders didn't know. They only knew that the holy capital of Great Yong was destroyed in a day. The strength of the Blackfield was simply terrifying. What? This is impossible. This is impossible. Feng Yuan was hysterical. She looked in the direction of Deqi's people, almost going crazy. You are all in cahoots with her. I don't believe it. Her eyes were cold. How could this be possible? She had just become the Empress of Great Yong, and was so smug about becoming the ruler of the entire eastern region. How could Great Yong be destroyed overnight? The Blackfield sent out troops and Ming Zun personally took action. How could this be possible? He was worried about the death of the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and didn't even have enough time to grieve over her death. How could he possibly take action against Great Yong? If she hadn't calculated this, how could she have sent troops to the two dynasties and forced them to hand over Luo Qingtong and everyone related to her? She even wanted to slaughter all the geniuses and experts of the three dynasties at the Four Academies tournament. It was because she had calculated that Ming Zun wouldn't have the time and energy to care about Luo Qingtong and the three dynasties. How could she have failed under such circumstances? This is impossible. Feng Yuan's voice was hysterical. At the same time, the Great Qin and Great Chu also received reports from the various dynasties. After reading the news, everyone was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. This Feng Yuan is too sinister and vicious. We were so close. Our two dynasties would have been destroyed. Yes, Great Yong's hidden strength is so strong. We were all fooled by them before. Everyone rejoiced and felt a lingering fear. This was especially true for the people of Great Chu. They were the ones with the weakest national strength. Fortunately, they had Luo Qingtong, the holy conferred princess. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong with gratitude and awe. As for Feng Yuan, after the people of Great Chu and the Empire of Qin received the news one after another, they had no choice but to believe it. Destroyed? Has my Great Yong really been destroyed? She clenched her fists tightly. His nails, as sharp as iron, pierced into his palm. Because he used too much strength with a ka sound, those nails were all broken. It's you. Feng Yuan looked at Luo Qingtong with hatred and madness. His eyes were cold and vicious, as if they were about to concoct poison. You did it. The other party had not appeared for so long. She thought that she was a coward. From the looks of it, the other party must have gone to plot these things. All of his schemes and ambitions had gone down the drain. The other party deserved to die. Losing to the evil Dr. Ghost Eye was enough to make Feng Yuan collapse. Now there was Luo Qingtong. If she had known that the other party would become like this, causing all of her efforts to go to waste, she would have killed her the first time she attacked her. She would not have just blinded her eyes with poison. Luo Qingtong, I want you dead. Her eyes were like a viper's as she looked at Luo Qingtong. Then, her entire body rushed towards the girl. Qingtong. Chapter 1621. When they saw Luo Qingtong coming, they were so happy that they forgot about Feng Yuan's strength. Even Ma Chenyi went up the stage with the determination to die. Luo Qingtong went to the far west wilderness this time. How much had her strength improved? Could she be a match for Feng Yuan? Everyone was nervous. Even if they were always by Luo Qingtong's side and witnessed the various miracles created by the girl, they couldn't completely relax. After all, Feng Yuan she had surpassed the sage realm. When Luo Qingtong went to the far west wilderness, her strength was only at the martial emperor realm. Even if she had a great opportunity, it was impossible for her to reach the level of surpassing the sage realm in such a short time, right? Sure enough, the aura around Luo Qingtong's body spread out. It was the cultivation of the sage realm. When everyone saw this, their hearts sank instantly. This increment in strength was unparalleled and terrifying. But it was still not enough. between the Sage Realm and surpassing the Sage Realm. Even if there was only one step, it was an insurmountable gap. Not good. Ma Chenyi and the others stood up at once. On the other side, Feng Wuan sneered. Haha. Sage Realm? Luo Qingtong, it seems that you have obtained a great opportunity during this time. It's good to have clung to the Blackfield's thigh. Don't you think so? She looked at the aura around Luo Qingtong with a cynical expression. He didn't know how much the other party had paid in the dark domain to raise his strength to the Sage Realm. But that was the end of it. Using all kinds of medicine to forcibly raise her cultivation, she couldn't even display 1/10 of her true strength. The aura of the Sage Realm of the other party only looked intimidating. Luo Qingtong, I'm going to torture you to death in front of everyone. You destroyed my conspiracy and destroyed my great Yong, so what? I still have a chance to turn the tables in the Four Academies tournament. As long as I win the Four Academies tournament, with my cultivation surpassing the Sage Realm, I will be able to gain the favor of those top sects in the hidden world. At that time, I will enter those top sections. What can you do to me? Even the Blackfield's Ming Zun may not be able to do anything to me. As Feng Wuan said this, her heart was filled with pride and resentment. She was proud that Luo Qingtong couldn't do anything to her, and she would still have the opportunity to make a comeback in the future. She hated the fact that such an outstanding and powerful man like Yi Qianmin couldn't be used by her, and she still had to be dealt with. As she thought this thought, a burst filled Filt's anger's heart. Luo Qingtong die. Hers is the Sage Emperor Qingtong. A Feng Luo Qingtong. The power that erupted was extremely violent, as if it could shatter mountains and shatter rocks. Seeing that attack and Feng Wuan's figure rushing over, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Bang! Just as that palm was about to hit her, Luo Qingtong raised her hand. She stretched out her palm and caught Feng Wuan's palm. Then she suddenly clenched her 5 fingers. Crack! Feng Wuan's 5 fingers were fiercely folded into her palm. When she wrapped them into a fist, she suddenly lifted her foot and kicked. Bang! Feng Wuan's figure was like a bowed prawn in an instant, and he was sent flying by her kick. Boom! Feng Wuan's figure brushed against the ground of the arena. He moved horizontally for nearly 100 meters before he stopped. Barely managing to stand firm, Feng Wuan looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of disbelief. What's wrong? Is it hard to believe? Luo Qingtong looked at her indifferently. The bloody light in her eyes flickered coldly. Chapter 1622. Following Luo Qingtong's words, everyone was stunned. In an instant, there was a muffled bang. Luo Qingtong stomped her feet heavily on the floor. Then, like a red lightning bolt, she flew towards Feng Wuan. Bang! Luo Qingtong's right leg swept towards Feng Wuan. Feng Wuan didn't believe that Luo Qingtong's strength in the Sage Realm could resist her strength that surpassed the Sage Realm, and even beat her back. Even if she didn't use all of her strength that surpassed the Sage Realm. After all, there was a huge gap between the Sage Realm and the Sage Realm. She didn't believe that a Sage Realm cultivator could resist her and beat her back. I don't believe it. Luo Qingtong, how can you be stronger than me? I don't believe it. Bang! At the same time, Feng Wuan lifted his leg to meet Luo Qingtong's. Their legs collided in midair. In an instant, there was a boom. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light. Her toes suddenly pointed towards a certain part of Feng Wuan's leg. In an instant, the strength of Feng Wuan's leg suddenly decreased. At the same time, the aura of Luo Qingtong's leg was like a sharp knife, fiercely stabbing into the aura of Feng Wuan's leg, breaking the surface with a single point, straight to the point. Boom! When Luo Qingtong's leg kicked away Feng Wuan's leg, it also fiercely brushed through the air and swept Feng Wuan's face, sending her flying. Bang! Feng Wuan's figure hit the nearby pillar. She covered her face. Her leg was in severe pain and numbness. She looked at Luo Qingtong in front of her in disbelief. How could this be? How was this possible? At this time, Feng Wuan had no choice but to believe that Luo Qingtong's Sage Realm strength did indeed have the qualifications to contend with him. The other party's aura was terrifyingly thick, and the nature of his power was dense and solid. This kind of aura and strength was not what she thought it was, an illusory strength that relied on drugs to increase. It was no exaggeration to say that she would have been defeated by Luo Qingtong in a single move if it wasn't for her strength surpassing the sage realm. How could he be so strong? How could he be so strong? Feng Wuan's heart was on the verge of going crazy. He simply couldn't believe what he was seeing. Feng Wuan, I already said. Luo Qingtong flicked the dust off her feet and said casually, if you don't use your full strength, then you can just wait for death. After saying that, Luo Qingtong's figure flew out again and attacked Feng Wuan violently. Beyond the Saint Realm? Unrivaled? She would let Feng Wuan know that his strength surpassing the Saint Realm was not worth mentioning at all in front of her. Even if she only used the strength of the Saint Realm, it was enough to kill him. Boom. As Luo Qingtong's figure attacked Feng Wuan, the people in the stands came back to their senses as if they had just woken up from a dream. Oh my God! The crowd looked at the scene on the stage in disbelief. They almost couldn't believe their own eyes. A Saint Realm expert forced a surpassing Saint Realm expert to retreat? Not only that, but he also took the initiative to attack and completely suppress the opponent. If it weren't for the fact that they were certain that Feng Wuan's strength had indeed surpassed the Saint Realm, and that Luo Qingtong's aura was completely that of the Saint Realm, they would have thought that they had seen wrongly. The one with the cultivation surpassing the Saint Realm should be Luo Qingtong. The one with the cultivation of the Saint Realm should be Feng Wuan. Chapter 16:23. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Even those from the sects that had come to watch the match looked at Luo Qingtong with astonishment in their eyes. It wasn't because of anything else. In the hidden world, Luo Qingtong was a genius powerhouse that could easily deal with a powerhouse that surpassed the Saint Realm. But without exception, they were all direct descendants of top sects and influences. Ordinary sects and influences would never be able to raise someone like that. But for someone like Luo Qingtong, who was born in the true Spill continent where the spiritual energy was inferior to the hidden world, to have such talent and strength, just how terrifying was this? In their eyes, Feng Wuan could cultivate to a level that surpassed the Saint Realm in the true Spill continent where the spiritual energy was so barren. That meant that his talent and strength were already at the peak. But Luo Qingtong, who could easily deal with her with the strength of a Saint Realm powerhouse, was the peak of the peak. With this talent and strength, once she entered the hidden world, she would be like a dragon swimming in the vast sea. She would be able to soar into the skies for thousands of miles. As everyone's eyes were filled with surprise, on the side of the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy, the highest dean had already slapped his thigh. Haha. I knew that you could do it. Haha. You really didn't disappoint me. The highest dean laughed. The group of people from the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy glanced at him, thinking, don't think that we didn't see you nervously pinching your thigh a moment ago. Now you're saying that you've already anticipated this? However, no one dared to tear down his facade. The group of people from the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy looked at the arena with excitement. Ha! Highest Dean, the best thing you did was to recklessly recruit Luo Qingtong into the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy. That's right. The group of people from the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy smiled as they looked at the highest dean. If it weren't for the highest dean's persistence, the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy wouldn't have had the chance to return alive, let alone return in defeat. Where did this glory come from? They all looked at the scene in the arena with smiles on their faces. As for Su Xiaoxiao, Little Overlord Yuan, and the others, they were already so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Haha. I knew boss would be fine. Little Overlord Yuan said with a smug look. Before he could finish his sentence, Sima Ju knocked his head harshly. You already knew? He sneered as he looked at Yuan Who was the one who said something happened to boss. Little tyrant Yuan laughed dryly and denied it decisively. Is that me? This is impossible. That's definitely not me. You must have remembered wrongly. Everyone looked at him with disdain. Where's your shame? There was nothing left. Little Overlord Yuan decisively replied with an affirmative look. Ma Chenyi, on the other hand, had a complicated look in his eyes as he looked at the fiery figure of the young lady on the stage. Luo Qingtong was really getting stronger and stronger. He originally thought that after coming out of seclusion this time, he would have the chance to protect her after fusing with the bloodline power in his body and breaking through to the Saint Realm. But he didn't expect that she would once again walk ahead of him. She reached the Saint Realm as a martial emperor. Then, she used her Saint Realm body to resist Feng Yuan's transcending Saint Realm. Luo Qingtong, how much potential and surprises do you have that haven't been fully revealed? Chapter 1624. Boom. In the arena, Luo Qingtong's figure had already arrived in front of Feng Yuan. At this moment, boom. An extremely ferocious and domineering figure, like a slithering dragon or snake, rushed from the front in an instant and lashed towards Luo Qingtong. It was a long whip as thick as a python. The segments of bone on the whip flickered with a pale and cold light under the sun. Upon closer inspection, it was surprisingly pieced together by segments of human bones. This long bone whip was about 9 feet long. Under the infusion and dance of Feng Yuan's strength, it instantly grew to a length of tens of meters. Like a venomous snake, it swiftly attacked Luo Qingtong. The sharp sound of wind cutting through the air was like the wailing of 10,000 ghosts, and the shrill howls of 10,000 demons in people's ears. It was obvious that this was an extremely evil and powerful weapon. In the hands of Feng Yuan, her strength had been greatly enhanced. Bang! Seeing the huge bone whip rumbling towards her, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and dodged to the side. In an instant, the tip of the long bone whip heavily bombarded the arena. In an instant, the ground of the arena, which had been reinforced by special steel and was capable of withstanding the attacks of those who had surpassed the Saint Realm, was blasted into a huge pit. Luo Qingtong. Feng Yuan's expression was gloomy and fierce. Holding the long bone whip in her hand, she floated in the air like a vengeful ghost. Her face was hideous and distorted to a terrifying extent. Luo Qingtong's kick just now had directly swept off the veil and human skin mask on her face. At this moment, the hideous and terrifying wound on her face, revealing the eerie white bones, flesh and fat, was revealed. At this moment, Feng Yuan no longer had the complacency and beauty of the Empress of Great Yong. Even the evil spirits of hell were much prettier than her. Ah! So disgusting. So the Empress of Great Yong looks like this. A burst of exclamations faintly sounded in the surroundings. Many people felt extremely disgusted when they saw Feng Yuan's extremely ferocious and terrifying face. The previous Feng Yuan looked both beautiful and strong. Now that his mask was torn off by Luo Qingtong, he turned from extremely beautiful to extremely ugly. The impact he gave people was not ordinary. Luo Qingtong. I want you dead. Feng Yuan's expression was ferocious and cold. The expression on her face twitched fiercely. Then, with a boom, that white bone-long whip that had sunk who knew how many meters deep into the floor of the arena, suddenly swept out. Like a venomous dragon emerging from its cave, it swept towards Luo Qingtong, who had just landed on the ground. The terrifying and violent power contained within the whip directly shattered the floor of the arena. In an instant, pieces of the refined iron floor were sent flying by the whip's wind. Together with the huge white bone whip, they blasted towards Luo Qingtong. Boom! Even an expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm might not be able to withstand the power of this attack. Buzz! Luo Qingtong looked at the whip's wind that carried countless fragments of refined iron flying towards her. Her eyes instantly focused. Life and death yin-yang sword. She raised her hand. In an instant, a long sword with alternating black and white light appeared in her hand. Chapter 1625. Heaven-Conquering Art, First Form, Seizing Heaven's Fortune. Boom! Following Luo Qingtong's attack. In an instant, the sword radiated a heavenly light, eternal desolation. The sword radiance that seemed to stun time blasted out from the long sword in her hand. In an instant, it flew forward like a blade or a moon. In an instant, it collided with the huge white bone whip that Feng Yuan had thrown over. But in an instant, boom boom boom. A series of violent explosions sounded. The bone whip in Feng Yuan's hand, which was like a divine weapon capable of severing lives, broke into pieces. Bang bang bang. The sky was filled with white bone powder, mixed with sharp and mournful screams. Many vengeful spirits were revealed. It was obvious that Feng Yuan had killed many people in the process of refining this whip. Among them, there were even many members of Great Yong's imperial family. Heavens! Look! At this moment, everyone in the surroundings opened their eyes wide. They looked in shock at the figures of the vengeful spirits revealed by Feng Yuan's broken bone whip. Among them, there were even the shadows of Great Yong's imperial family. Heavens! Didn't this mean that everyone in Great Yong's imperial family was killed by Feng Yuan? Oh my God! Everyone's eyes widened, almost unable to believe what they were seeing. Apart from Feng Yuan, almost all the members of Great Yong's imperial family were killed. They were wondering who did it. Right, didn't Feng Yuan say that it was Luo Qingtong who did it? He even sent troops to capture everyone related to Luo Qingtong. But it turned out that these people were killed by her. Feng Yuan was simply a thief crying out to catch a thief. The people from the Empire of Qin and Great Yong jumped up and almost cursed. Fuck, this Feng Yuan is too shameless. His heart is like a poisonous scorpion. He killed his own blood-related members of Great Yong's imperial family, and even framed our princess. Exactly. Qingtong has really been wronged. F***ck. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Yanxi and His Highness the Crown Prince insisted on protecting the people related to her. Otherwise, wouldn't this venomous woman have succeeded? This is absolutely disgusting. The people from the Empire of Qin and Great Chu were furious. As for the people from Great Qi, Great Yong, and the sects from the various hidden worlds, they looked at Feng Yuan with disgust and loathing. Especially the people from the sects of the hidden world. Originally, they thought highly of Feng Yuan, and wanted to help her at the last moment. When he saw this scene and heard the exclamations of the surrounding people, he immediately dispelled this idea. For such a vicious woman, no matter how talented she was just like a dormant poisonous snake. No one knew when she would suddenly bite back and bite them. After all, he had even harmed his own blood relatives. Moreover, he was so vicious and merciless that he had exterminated his entire family. Even if such a person was given to them, they wouldn't dare to accept it. It was too terrifying. Everyone shook their heads. As for the people from the Great Yong sacred dynasty, their faces were indescribably ugly. The people of Great Yong's imperial family were actually slaughtered by Feng Yuan? Many people who didn't know the inside story felt a wave of disillusionment in their hearts. They looked at Feng Yuan with unbearable disgust and disgust. Deserted by all, despised by all. Chapter 1626. And this wasn't what she couldn't accept the most. What she couldn't accept the most was, "Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. You are evil Dr. Ghost Eye." Feng Yuan's voice screamed. She looked at the girl who was floating in the air. Luo Qingtong held the black and white long sword in front of her chest. The aura around her was surging and bursting. All of these coincided with the figure of evil Dr. Gui Tong, who had almost killed her in the sage monarch's tomb. Luo Qingtong was evil Dr. Ghost Eye. She was Yi Jiao in the far west wilderness. Ah! Feng Yuan almost instantly screamed hysterically. She couldn't believe the facts in front of her eyes. Luo Qingtong was evil Dr. Ghost Eye. She was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye whom she hated to death, but couldn't get rid of. She had always been at a disadvantage under the other party's hands. The woman she hated the most and couldn't deal with the most. The woman who stole all the glory she should have gotten, and ruined all her plans. She also stole the evil Dr. Ghost Eye from the most outstanding man she liked. How could this be? Who was Luo Qingtong? She could easily play with her in the palm of her hand. If it wasn't for her disdain to deal with her, she would have played her to death in the Eastern Fence country. She blinded the other party's eyes with poison. With just a few words, she made the people of the imperial family of the Tianyu Empire recklessly deal with her. And she just had to watch the show from the side. It was such a lowly person in her eyes who she didn't even want to deal with. But in the end, she stepped on her head, destroyed everything she had and stole the man she couldn't even get close to. She trampled everything she had into the mud. How could this be? Feng Yuan's heart collapsed. Luo Qingtong looked at her indifferently. She held the sword in one hand and floated in the air. She didn't move at all when Feng Yuan revealed her identity. Before she took action, Luo Qingtong knew that she couldn't hide her identity. But it didn't matter. She didn't need to hide her identity anymore. To be able to give Feng Yuan a strong blow, she was very happy. Luo Qingtong knew how much Feng Yuan despised the original host, and how much he hated her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Now that the two identities were combined into one, Feng Yuan would most likely collapse. She liked to see the other party looking down on her, but being ruthlessly stepped on. From the inside out, she would not let him off. While Feng Yuan's heart was crumbling, everyone around the stands was also shocked by her words. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye? Luo Qingtong is actually that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Oh my god! Everyone was dumbfounded. It was the same for the people from the sects in the hidden world. Who was evil Dr. Gui Tong? Blackfield was an alchemist that was highly sought after in the entire True Spill continent. Even in the hidden world, there were some people who had heard of her name. The pills that Luo Qingtong refined were brought into the hidden world. The degree of perfection of the pills refined was not something that an average person could achieve. Even a pill saint who had comprehended the laws of alchemy and had first-rate talent in alchemy might not be able to refine pills to such a degree of perfection. The existence of evil Dr. Ghost Eye had already attracted the attention of the hidden world. However, because Luo Qingtong refined low-level pills, they thought that Luo Qingtong's alchemy skills were shallow, so they didn't care too much. Chapter 1627. The people of Great Chu were even more dumbfounded. Their conferred princess was actually the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Heavens! No wonder Blackfield and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye had sent such a huge gift when Empress Dowager and Empress Dowager got married. At that time, they had thought that Luo Qingtong was lucky to be able to gain the favor of the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Even they had benefited from it. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? Right when everyone was shocked in their hearts, Feng Yuan's wild cries suddenly stopped abruptly. Her eyes were blood-red and cold as she looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. With a swoosh, she threw away the bone whip in her hand. Her entire body retreated rapidly. Luo Qingtong. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. She gritted her teeth fiercely as she looked at Luo Qingtong with an extremely vicious gaze. Good. Very good. You're all gathered together. Haha. Her voice was filled with laughter, and then she suddenly waved her hand. Come out. Saint Corpse Puppet. As Feng Yuan's voice sounded, a figure that was almost like gold and iron appeared beside Feng Yuan in an instant. That figure was tall and sturdy, and he was still wearing the attire of the Great Yong imperial family. That face was wooden and greenish-black, and there was no sign of life. It was that transcendent saint from the Great Yong imperial family who had died. It was unknown what method Feng Yuan used to lock his strength in his body. At this moment his eyes were lifeless, and there was no movement as he stood beside Feng Yuan. However, his formidable aura at the Saint Realm was extremely surging and shocking to the extreme. The surrounding air was being cut apart bit by bit. There were traces of cracks all around. The aura of this transcendent saint from Great Yong was not the slightest bit weaker than when he was alive. Instead, it was even stronger. Luo Qingtong, you didn't expect it, right? I still have such a trump card. Feng Yuan sneered and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. So what if the other party was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? When she was in the Saint King's tomb, who knew what kind of opportunity she had to have such strength to be able to resist her blood demon vines? However, this was not the Saint King's tomb. She didn't have anything to borrow. On the other hand, the Saint Realm puppet he'd refined had retained all the strength he'd possessed when he was alive. Moreover, all of them had been raised to the peak. Undying and indestructible, unable to hurt or feel pain. What could Luo Qingtong use to fight with her? There was no spirit of the Sage King's tomb here for her to deal with him. Haha. Luo Qingtong, just wait to be torn to shreds by this saint corpse. Feng Yuan also threw caution to the wind. Originally, she was prepared to keep this saint-level puppet as a trump card, and didn't intend to take it out. But now everything was ruined by Luo Qingtong. even the matter of the great Yong royal family being killed. Everyone knew that she was the one who did it. She was already the target of public criticism, so what was there to be afraid of? Boom. As Feng Wuan's voice sounded, in an instant, the purple and green light in her eyes suddenly soared. In the next second, the saint-level puppet moved in response and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. The strength of the energy rippling out from its body almost split the sky, leaving a wide crack in the sky. The powerful aura emitted from it caused the expressions of the people below the stage to change. Not good. It's a saint-level puppet corpse. Quick, go and save her. A group of people from the Empire of Qin and Great Chu hurriedly responded by slapping the table and flying out to save her. Chapter 16:28. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed, and she dodged the attack of the Saint Realm puppet. The blood-red light in her eyes flickered, and the scene inside and outside the Saint Realm puppet was completely revealed to her. She saw that there was a soul sealed inside the Saint Realm puppet. It was the appearance of that Saint Realm transcendent from the Great Yong sacred dynasty's imperial family. He was screaming in pain, and streaks of purple light bound around him, controlling him to attack Luo Qingtong. It turned out that this Saint Realm transcendent from the Great Yong sacred dynasty had been refined into a puppet by Feng Wuan while he was still alive. This method of refining living people into corpses was powerful, but it was extremely evil and sinister. Those who were refined into living corpses would never be able to reincarnate. Not only that, but they would also have to endure the inhumane pain of being refined into a living corpse at all times. The corpse refined in this way would be full of resentment, and its strength would be preserved completely. In the future, it might even be able to break through and continue to grow. Presumably, Feng Wuan also had the same idea, which was why he refined this Saint Realm transcendent from the Great Yong sacred dynasty's imperial family into a living corpse. However, this method of refining living people into corpses had the greatest drawback. That was, the living corpse absolutely could not escape the control of the person who refined it. Otherwise, it would immediately backfire. Because it was refined to death, living corpses would retain a strong resentment and killing intent towards the person who refined it to death. Once it was out of control, no matter what happened, it would immediately backfire on its master, and it would not rest until it was dead. It could be said that this was a double-edged sword. Obviously, Feng Wuan also knew this. Therefore, she was using eye techniques to control it. He didn't use any ordinary puppetry techniques. Luo Qingtong's eyes flitted past the purple light binding the Saint Realm transcendent soul, and her lips suddenly curled up. If it was anyone else, Feng Wuan's arrangement could be said to be foolproof. But she just had to meet me. Break. Luo Qingtong retracted the annihilation light that was about to blast out and shouted. In an instant, the blood-red light in her eyes soared and covered her entire eyeball. She activated the eye technique in her eyes. At the same time, pop pop pop. A soft sound that ordinary people could not hear rang out. In an instant, the purplish-green light entangling the soul of that transcendent saint of Great Yong's imperial family broke apart. Their light dimmed. The soul of the transcendent saint let out a roar and broke free from their restraints. In an instant, the saint-level puppet that was pouncing towards Luo Qingtong stopped in its tracks. He abruptly turned around and looked at Feng Wuan, who was not far behind him. Then, he let out a shrill cry that was even sharper than before and pounced towards her. At this time, Feng Wuan was looking at Luo Qingtong's direction with cold eyes. His eyes flashed with complacent and cold killing intent. Luo Qingtong was definitely doomed this time. However, she'd just thought of this when she saw the Saint Realm puppet suddenly turn around and pounce towards her. What? Feng Wuan's eyes were filled with shock. She retreated rapidly. At the same time, the purplish-green light in her eyes flashed rapidly, trying to control this saint-level puppet. Chapter 16:29. How is this possible? Feng Wuan's heart was violently shaken. Her ocular technique had failed? How was this possible? How could her ocular technique have failed? Ever since Feng Wuan sacrificed the members of the Great Yong imperial family, her ocular technique had been completely stabilized. If not for this, she would not have been able to cooperate with Qingyan to kill that transcendent saint of the great Yong imperial family and refine him into a living corpse. Under such circumstances, how could her ocular technique have failed? This was absolutely impossible. What on earth had Luo Qingtong done? Feng Yuan looked at Luo Qingtong in horror. With one look, her pupils instantly shrank. Blood-red eyes. She looked at Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes in shock. The whites of the girl's eyes and eyeballs were almost suffused with the color of blood. These were definitely not ordinary eyes, nor were they the after-effects of Luo Qingtong's recovery as she had previously thought. She also had different colored pupils. After her pair of clear eyes were destroyed by her, her eyes had recovered, and they were actually different colored pupils. And it seemed that they were even stronger than the previous pair of different colored pupils, as well as her own. Feng Yuan's heart felt as if it had been struck hard. At this moment, her heart was filled with anger, regret, resentment, and all sorts of emotions. At this moment, the saint's corpse had already rushed in front of her. Ah! Feng Yuan screamed shrilly. The saint-level puppet pounced on her and bit her crazily. Being refined to death, and being of the same bloodline, the more pain this saint's corpse suffered while being refined by Feng Yuan, the more resentment it had towards her. It tore at Feng Yuan's body in a frenzy. In an instant, large chunks of flesh were torn off the latter's body, exposing her flesh and bones. Feng Yuan screamed miserably. She wanted to resist, but how powerful was this saint's corpse? It had already been a saint when it was alive, and after being refined by Feng Yuan, its strength had increased to the level of a saint master. How ruthless Feng Yuan's refinement had been back then was how miserable she was now. Ah! She struggled desperately and screamed. The group of people from the Great Chu and the Empire of Qin who had rushed over to rescue Luo Qingtong stopped the moment the saint's corpse turned around and pounced on Feng Yuan. At this moment, he was even more shocked as he watched Feng Yuan being bitten crazily. What was going on? The living corpse refined by Feng Yuan actually suffered a backlash? Haha. She deserves it. The Grand Supreme Dean laughed loudly, then spat fiercely in Feng Yuan's direction. Vicious thoughts and evil intentions. To be able to refine such a corpse using the technique of refining a living person's corpse, and using her own blood to refine it, Feng Yuan, your conscience must have been eaten by a dog. Everyone naturally recognized the saint from Great Yong. Seeing her biting Feng Yuan's body in a frenzy, as if she wanted to tear Feng Yuan apart and eat him alive. How could they not know that it was Feng Yuan who had caused her to become like this? Otherwise, she wouldn't have pounced on her immediately after losing control. A woman like her could not even be described with the word venomous. She was clearly a demon among humans. Thinking this, everyone looked at Feng Yuan with even more disdain. At this moment, the wisp of green smoke in Feng Yuan's body sensed her danger and woke up. Chapter 1630. It instantly became angry and anxious. It did not have time to ask Feng Yuan what was going on. It raised its hand and blasted an attack at the saint puppet. Boom. The saint puppet was blasted back and instantly released its suppression of Feng Yuan. At this time, the Feng kite had already been gnawed into a mess by that saint puppet, and it was practically unrecognizable. The green smoke hurriedly got up and was about to escape. However, Luo Qingtong had been observing Feng Yuan with her blood-red eyes. Previously in the Saint King's tomb, she had noticed that something seemed to be wrong with Feng Yuan's body. She had been in danger several times and suddenly erupted with an extremely strange power that did not belong to her. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. When Feng Yuan was knocked down, she did not close her blood-red eyes. Instead, she activated her pupil technique to the extreme. When the green smoke awakened and took control of Feng Yuan's body, she also discovered her traces. In an instant, the corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. Saw her. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Looking at the faintly discernible green smoke in Feng Yuan's body, Luo Qingtong's expression was leisurely. The light in her blood-red eyes was unusually cold. How could she make the same mistake twice? Last time in the Saint King's tomb, Feng Yuan was lucky that the tomb collapsed and she escaped. This time, it would not be so easy. She would not let go of the green smoke in her body. Boom. As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, her right hand suddenly blasted out an attack that had been brewing for a long time. Annihilation. Luo Qingtong had already grasped the heart of the thousand-year soul-guiding tree in her left hand, but it was hidden by her sleeve and was not visible. The attack in her right hand had been accumulating power for a long time, and now she blasted out with her sword. In an instant, the sword light that seemed to be able to annihilate everything spun like the Milky Way and blasted towards Feng Yuan in front of her like a waterfall. The latter's figure was about to disappear into the air under the control of the green smoke. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's attack arrived. Boom, boom, boom. Luo Qingtong's improved annihilation instantly shattered the spatial fluctuations around Feng Yuan's body and pulled her body back. Not only that, it constantly eliminated the power around her, so that she could no longer escape. At the same time, the power of the annihilation soared light. Annihilation. A miserable and sharp voice rang out. Feng Yuan's body was forcefully struck by the sword. In an instant, half of her body seemed to have melted into the air. The green smoke also let out an unusually shrill sound under Luo Qingtong's attack. But all of this could not compare to the shock and fear that appeared in his eyes the moment he saw Luo Qingtong's blood pupil. The sovereign blood pupil? It's actually the sovereign blood pupil. That person is back. He was shocked and frightened to the extreme. He almost could not believe his eyes. At this moment, boom. There was a sudden explosion outside the door of the venue. Then, an incomparably vigorous and angry voice suddenly shouted in a stern voice. Chapter 1631. Bang! As this voice rang out, in an instant, an incomparably violent shockwave spread all the way from the entrance of the venue, rushing into the venue in an instant. Luo Qingtong's attack was shaken by the sound wave, and was deflected to one side. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. She was about to follow up with another attack, when Feng Yuan's half-melted body suddenly disappeared in front of her. Luo Qingtong's face instantly turned cold. She turned her head with an icy gaze and looked at the figure who walked in from the entrance. To be precise, it was a group of figures. Luo Qingtong looked at the group of people behind that person. Those people were all injured and were supporting each other as they followed behind the person who strode into the venue. When they saw Luo Qingtong, they quickly pointed at her and said, "Marshal Uncle Zhang, it's her. She injured us." "Yes. It's her. Senior Sister Yan is still unconscious," the group of people said. These people were none other than the people from the Breeze Pavilion. They had been instructed by Song Yan to stop Luo Qingtong and prevent her from entering the venue. However, they had been beaten up in the end. Now they were here for revenge. "So what if it's me?" Luo Qingtong looked coldly at the group of people who had just interrupted her plan to kill Feng Yuan. Although the latter was on his last breath, Luo Qingtong could not be at ease until she saw him die in front of her. Thinking of how old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi had almost been killed by Feng Yuan's conspiracy, Luo Qingtong felt stifled in her heart. She said coldly, "It's said that a good dog doesn't block the way. Don't you know how to be a dog? How dare you come in front of me and shout? Impudent." Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Uncle Master Zhang's face was instantly filled with rage. The other party had injured the people of the Breeze Pavilion. It was fine if she did not immediately kneel and kowtow to apologize and beg for forgiveness. But she still dared to insult the people of the Breeze Pavilion? Who gave her the guts? She really did not know what was good for her. What an arrogant girl. You injured the people of the Breeze Pavilion. You don't repent and still dare to talk nonsense. I'll teach you a lesson today. I'll seek justice for the disciples of the Breeze Pavilion. Kneel down. As he spoke, he directly released his aura and pressed it toward Luo Qingtong. Holy General. Seeing the aura released by the other party, the people from Great Chu and Great Qin who had rushed to Luo Qingtong's side were all shocked. This was especially true for the Grand Supreme Dean and the others. Their expressions were even uglier. The other party's aura was thick and solid. He was clearly a top-notch Saint General, and was not far from entering the Saint Lord realm. Why did such an expert come to the Breeze Pavilion? Normally, in the four academies' distinguished meeting, wouldn't the sects of the hidden worlds only send a single sacred expert, and that was already the limit? Most of the time, they would send a Saint Realm expert to deal with them. Why did a holy general appear here? In an instant, the Grand Supreme Dean's forehead was covered in sweat. Seeing that Martial Uncle Zhang's aura was about to press down on Luo Qingtong, he gritted his teeth and was about to speak. At this moment, a cold voice was heard coming from outside the door. Kneel? You think you're worthy of making her kneel? Chapter 1632. Swoosh. It was only a step away, but in a flash, the other party had already appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. Bang! Martial Uncle Zhang's suppressive aura towards Luo Qingtong was bounced back. In an instant he took 2 steps back. You. He looked at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him with a shocked and angry expression. As for the Supreme Dean and the others, they immediately cried out in surprise. Mingzun. They looked at the figure that appeared beside Luo Qingtong in surprise. If they didn't see wrongly, Mingzun had just repelled the Saint General of the Breeze Pavilion? Everyone was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. They were shocked that Yi Qianming was so strong. He was much stronger than they had imagined. They were surprised that the other party was so strong. Luo Qingtong should be fine. Everyone was very happy. The people who rushed over to Luo Qingtong's side were all from the Empire of Qin and the Great Chu. They naturally didn't want anything to happen to Luo Qingtong, especially the Grand Principal. When he saw Yi Qianming appear, he immediately swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. With Yi Qianming here, there was no need for him to stand up. Hearing their voices, Martial Uncle Zhang's expression suddenly froze. You are Mingzun from the Black Field? He was surprised and bewildered. The other party was actually someone from the secular world, and not from the hidden world. Was there such a strong person in the secular world? He was in disbelief. The moment Yi Qianxian's voice sounded, Luo Qingtong dispersed the power in her hand, and the eye technique that was about to control the saint-level puppet to rush over. Her eyes flashed slightly as she looked at the man in front of her. She didn't know why, but she felt inexplicably guilty, although she didn't know what bad things she had done to this man. Oomph! Yi Qianxian snorted softly and ignored Luo Qingtong. This woman still knew how to feel guilty? He left for a while, and when he came back, she ran away without a trace. If it weren't for the fact that Feng Yuan came to the holy capital of Great Qi to participate in the Four Academies conference, and that Luo Qingtong would never let him go, he didn't know where to go to catch her. He would remember this debt and settle it with her bit by bit later. Yi Qianxian's eyes swept past Luo Qingtong and finally landed coldly on Martial Uncle Zhang of the Breeze Pavilion. You want her to kneel? His voice was cold. No matter how angry he was, he couldn't bear to see her suffer any grievances. Yi Qianxian's eyes was cold. As for Martial Uncle Zhang, the moment he saw the light in Yi Qianren's eyes, he was shocked. The man's eyes were icy cold. With just one look, he felt like he was about to be frozen. Perhaps Yi Qianxian's strength was above his. As this Martial Uncle Zhang pondered, he immediately softened his tone. He looked at Yi Qianren and said, She injured the people of our Breeze Pavilion, and even spoke rudely to us. I just want to seek justice for the people of our Breeze Pavilion. Mingzun, if you must protect her, that's fine too. Let her apologize to us, and I'll drop this matter immediately. As he spoke, the disciples of the Breeze Pavilion behind him immediately stood up with their heads held high and chests puffed out. That's right. She injured us, so she must apologize. Chapter 1633. They actually wanted Luo Qingtong to kneel down and kowtow to them as an apology. However, they had also seen how Yi Qianxian had forced Uncle Master Zhang to retreat. Naturally, they could only accept this outcome. Even so, they were not prepared to let Luo Qingtong off so easily. After the other party had apologized, they would ruthlessly extort a sum of money from the other party. Wasn't this Luo Qingtong the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? The group of people had already figured out Luo Qingtong's identity from the discussions around them. Instantly they became excited. After Luo Qingtong had apologized, they would make the other party take out a large sum of elixirs as an apology. In addition to treating their injuries, they would also need the other party's large sum of elixirs to increase their own strength. At that time, the other party would be so heartbroken that they would be unable to speak of their suffering. She had dared to attack them previously. It would be strange if they did not ruthlessly peel off a layer of her skin. The group of people were extremely pleased with themselves as they thought of this. They looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Apologize, Luo Qingtong." "Apologize?" Luo Qingtong looked at them with a light smile. There was no trace of a smile in her eyes. "Are you going to apologize to me?" "Sure." She crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked at them with a cold smile on her lips. "I'll wait." "You." The group of people from the Breeze Pavilion glared at her. Uncle Master Zhang's expression was also extremely angry and cold. "You're impudent," he said coldly to Yi Qianxian. "Mingzun, you've seen it too. She doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. It's not that I don't want to give you face. She injured our people from the Breeze Pavilion. This matter will not be settled just like this. Either she apologizes to us, or we fight back. There's no third option. I think that you, the dignified Mingzun, won't protect her to the point where you can't differentiate right from wrong and be shameless and unreasonable." Before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong's cold voice rang out. "Shameless and unreasonable? Are you talking about yourselves?" Luo Qingtong sneered, her eyes sweeping over Martial Uncle Zhang and the group of people from the Breeze Pavilion behind him. "Why did I hit you? Do you dare to tell me? The one who provokes first is despicable. You guys attacked me first and were beaten back by me. You still have the nerve to call me a thief? Where is your Breeze Pavilion's face? Did a dog eat it?" Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She was originally filled with anger because the people from the Cool Breeze Pavilion had interrupted her attempt to kill Feng Yuan. If Feng Yuan didn't die and caused any more trouble, she would definitely hold the Cool Breeze Pavilion responsible for this. Not to mention that the other party was still relentlessly trying to deal with her. "You want me to apologize? Good. She was going to properly compensate them. You. Nonsense." The people of the Breeze Pavilion felt guilty. They had tried to stop Luo Qingtong and were beaten up by her. They even caused Song Yan to be unconscious until now. They would never dare to tell the truth. What they said to Martial Uncle Zhang was also true. Luo Qingtong had previously been bullied by Song Yan and had always harbored a grudge. When she saw them, she immediately attacked them and beat them into this state. When they heard Luo Qingtong's words, they instantly felt guilty. However, they quickly calmed down. At that time, there was no one outside the venue. Other than a few passers-by, no one had seen them stop Luo Qingtong. So what if she told the truth? Chapter 1634. The crowd thought so and soon raised their heads proudly. They sneered at Luo Qingtong and said, "Luo Qingtong, don't think that you can reverse right and wrong with your words. You were the one who hit us first. Don't talk nonsense here. Is that so?" Luo Qingtong looked at them with a smile and suddenly raised her hand. Swoosh! A ray of light suddenly shot out from her finger and swept toward the disciple of the Breeze Pavilion who was shouting the loudest. "You." Seeing Luo Qingtong's action, the disciples of the Breeze Pavilion didn't react at all. However, Martial Uncle Zhang's face was full of shock and anger. He raised his hand and was about to knock away the ray of light released by Luo Qingtong. However, just as he moved, Yi Qianxian's aura suddenly shook and shattered his attack with a bang. At the same time, the ray of light swept into the mouth of that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. Oh! That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion didn't react to what had happened and inexplicably swallowed something in his mouth. He was caught off guard and swallowed it. His heart was instantly filled with panic. "You. What did you make me eat?" Martial Uncle Zhang was also very shocked and angry. He almost immediately attacked Luo Qingtong. However, Yi Qianxian's aura suddenly soared and enveloped Luo Qingtong. At the same time, a pair of sharp eyes that seemed to contain incomparable coldness and coldness coldly looked in his direction. The two of them were ready to attack. Luo Qingtong pulled Yi Qianxian and laughed softly. "Don't worry, I didn't make them eat anything. I just made them eat something that made them speak the truth." As she spoke, She raised her hand and threw a pill to Martial Uncle Zhang. Truth pill. People who eat this pill can only speak the truth while the pill is in effect. You can check if there are any problems with this pill. Why should I believe your words? Martial Uncle Zhang's face was cold. He raised his hand and took the pill that Luo Qingtong threw to him. However, he had a bad premonition in his heart. Damn it, this girl can't be telling the truth, right? Could it be that these little bastards really lied to him? Martial Uncle Zhang's face was fierce. He fiercely turned around and glared at those disciples of the Breeze Pavilion, telling them to keep their mouths shut. He didn't care whether this matter was true or who started it first. But the Breeze Pavilion couldn't be in the wrong. He couldn't afford to lose face. As for this truth pill Qi, he could be considered an experienced and knowledgeable person in the hidden world, but he had never heard of such a medicinal pill. It seemed that the other party was just deceiving them. As long as these little bastards kept their mouths shut, the other party, they wouldn't be able to do anything. At that time, this stinky girl would have to suffer the consequences of her own actions. With that thought in mind, Martial Uncle Zhang retracted his aura. All right, I'll believe you this time. As he spoke, he walked in front of that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. The latter was desperately clawing at his throat, trying to spit out the truth pill. However, it was useless. That pill melted in his mouth. That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion was flustered. At this moment, Martial Uncle Zhang's voice rang out. Speak, who among you made the first move? He looked coldly at that disciple of the Breeze Pavilion. The warning in his eyes was very obvious. Although the latter was extremely flustered, he still pointed at Luo Qingtong and said, "It's her." Chapter 1635. Good. Martial Uncle Zhang sneered. He was very pleased with himself. Sure enough, the other party was just bluffing. Did you hear that? Luo Qingtong. He said it was you. What else do you have to say? He sneered at Luo Qingtong. The truth pill was provided by the other party, and she was the one who fed it into the mouth of the disciple. Now that the other party had said that she was the one who did it, let's see what other excuses she could have. The Breeze Pavilion's disciple was also pleasantly surprised. He was very nervous just now, afraid that the truth pill was real. If that was the case, he would be in trouble. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong was bluffing. What truth pill? It could only tell the truth. What a joke. The Breeze Pavilion disciple was very pleased with himself. He was about to raise his head to look at Luo Qingtong. Suddenly, he realized that he couldn't control his body. Slap. Just as he was about to raise his head, he suddenly raised his right hand high and slapped himself with all his strength. Ah! That disciple of the Breeze Pavilion let out a blood-curdling scream. One must know that his full strength was no less than a full-strength blow from him. In any case, he was an expert who had surpassed the Saint Realm. With this slap, his entire face was tilted to one side, and half of his face was swollen. Not only that, when he opened his mouth, several teeth flew out in an instant. What made him break down even more was that the words he used when he screamed were changed. Ah! I may be *tch. I'm despicable. I'm shameless. I'm lying. As he screamed, he slapped his own mouth fiercely and shouted these words uncontrollably. In an instant, he burst into tears and almost fainted. It wasn't that he was weak, but that he used all his strength in every slap. He was about to be beaten to death, okay? Every time he opened his mouth, he would spit out several teeth. It was only a few slaps, but his teeth were almost knocked out. No one had expected his sudden change in attitude. In an instant, Martial Uncle Zhang's face darkened. What did you do to him? He glared at Luo Qingtong. The latter had a leisurely look on her face, as if she already knew that this would happen. I told you the truth pill. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. You can only tell the truth. If you lie, you'll be severely punished. That's right. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a smile and said, if he continues to refuse to tell the truth, he will be beaten to death. Before she could finish her sentence, the disciple of the Breeze Pavilion immediately cried out loudly. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth. We started it. We started it. Stop. Stop it. That voice was exceptionally mournful and sharp. Strangely enough, after he said those words, he stopped slapping himself again and again. Martial Uncle Zhang's face was unsightly. I don't believe it. You must have used some sorcery. He shouted sternly at Luo Qingtong. What truth pill? It's just a smokescreen. Who knows what she did to my disciple in secret? Chapter 1636. Translations. You don't believe me? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Sure. As she spoke, she pointed at the Breeze Pavilion disciple and said, You can ask him any question and see how he responds. Before she could finish speaking, the Breeze Pavilion disciple wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. I can't. Martial Uncle, I really can't take it anymore. As he spoke, he fainted. Seeing this, Martial Uncle Zhang's face instantly turned ashen. Trash. He viciously kicked the Breeze Pavilion disciple away, and was about to call another Breeze Pavilion disciple over. Then he felt that it was not safe. Who knew what the other party had done? That disciple had already been tricked, which meant that the other disciples could be tricked as well. As he thought of this, he immediately raised his hand and put the truth pill into his mouth. He did not believe that the other party could still do anything to him. Seeing his actions, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly flashed, and then she laughed. Some people just liked to think that they were smart. She liked such people who thought that they were smart. She crossed her arms and looked at Martial Uncle Zhang. The latter had already called out another disciple of the Breeze Pavilion, and had him ask him a question. The kind that only we know when you ask, he said coldly. That disciple quickly nodded and then asked, Martial Uncle, what is my name? This was indeed a question that only they knew. Martial Uncle Zhang nodded with a satisfied expression. Then he purposely gave the wrong answer and said, Qingtong. As soon as he finished speaking, he calmed himself down and waited for the abnormal movements in his body. No matter what the other party wanted to do to him, he would fiercely suppress it, and then teach the other party a lesson. At that time, he would see what the other party had to say. As he thought of this, he suddenly looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with a cold expression. At this moment, he suddenly felt that his body was out of control. It's coming. Martial Uncle Zhang thought of this and immediately tried to suppress this strange movement in his body. However, this strange movement seemed to be a part of his body. No matter how much willpower he exerted, he could not suppress this power. It was as if he was shouting, Fight! He wanted to beat the liar to death. Just like the disciple from the Breeze Pavilion, this Uncle Master Zhang raised his right hand and slapped himself hard. Before he could react, another slap landed on his face. In the blink of an eye, Martial Uncle Zhang's face was slapped to the left, then to the right. His entire face had been slapped out of shape. Because it was his own power, his body's defense was useless. The power of a peak saint general instantly whipped him, until he was hovering between life and death. As soon as he opened his mouth, he let out a blood-curdling scream. I'm trash, I'm lowly, I deserve to die, I shouldn't have lied. He howled as he slapped himself in the face. Every slap was ruthless, and he couldn't control himself at all. At this moment, this Uncle Master Zhang finally understood why the Breeze Pavilion disciple fainted when he heard that he was going to be asked another question. This feeling was really worse than death. That truth pill was actually real. Chun Peng. It's Chun Peng. Chapter 1637. He tried his best to control himself, but to no avail. Instead, the more he slapped himself, the more vicious he became. This Martial Uncle Zhang couldn't take it anymore. He called out the disciple's name loudly, and finally stopped before he knocked himself out. At this moment, his face was completely swollen like a pig's head. His teeth were all over the floor. Other than the one who had completely fainted, the other disciples of the Breeze Pavilion all looked at him in shock. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. How is it? Is the truth out now? Was it your Breeze Pavilion who made the first move, or was it me who made the first move? Senior, you have to think carefully before you answer. Luo Qingtong's face was full of smiles. She was clearly as beautiful as a flower, but in the eyes of Martial Uncle Zhang, She was as scary as a ghost. He fiercely twitched his cheek. Every time he twitched, he felt an unforgettable pain, reminding him that everything just now was not a dream. He had almost slapped himself to death. "It's you." He gritted his teeth and wanted to make a final struggle. But before he could finish speaking, he felt his body becoming restless. His face instantly turned pale, and he no longer had any thoughts of bluffing his way out. "It's us. It's our breeze pavilion," he hurriedly said. Only after he said this did he feel the restlessness in his body disappear. He put down his hand that was about to raise again, and his expression instantly turned ugly. This breeze pavilion's Saint General expert had never been so humiliated before. He fiercely glared at the trembling breeze pavilion disciples who didn't even dare to look at him. He stood up, panting heavily. "Let's go." He shook off the breeze pavilion disciples who came to help him, and turned to leave. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice slowly sounded from behind him. "Senior, you're leaving just like that? I'm afraid that's not good." Luo Qingtong walked in front of him with her arms crossed. She smiled faintly and said, "Just now your breeze pavilion people said that I hit you, so I have to apologize, right? Now that you've clearly wronged me, why are you leaving just like that?" Luo Qingtong sneered as she looked at these people from the breeze pavilion. These people probably didn't know what it meant by, "It's easier to invite the devil in than to send it away." Why was it so easy for them to find trouble with him? "You want to leave? Sure. Apologize and make amends before leaving." She would never stop him. Luo Qingtong generally didn't find trouble with others, but whoever found trouble with her had to be prepared to be skinned alive. She didn't know what it meant to be forgiving whenever possible. She only knew that if Yi Qianxian hadn't arrived, who knew what these people from the breeze pavilion would have done? Since that was the case, why would she let them go? Wasn't it just taking advantage of power to bully others? She knew how to do it too. Those who bullied her would be returned 100-fold. "You don't go too far." Being stopped by Luo Qingtong, Martial Uncle Zhang instantly trembled with anger. This woman was simply outrageous. He and the disciples from the breeze pavilion had already become like this, and she actually wanted them to apologize? However, he had completely forgotten that they only had themselves to blame. Chapter 1638. This martial Uncle Zhang coldly glared at Luo Qingtong, his heart filled with resentment. Before he came to find trouble with Luo Qingtong, he never thought that he would kick an iron plate. In his opinion, the other party was only a small student of the Holy Institute. Even if he later found out that the other party was evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he still didn't put him in his eyes. He was only slightly famous. It wasn't as if their hidden world didn't have alchemists. However, the appearance of Yi Qianxian was completely beyond his expectations. He never thought that in this secular world, there would be such a powerhouse. With the other party's strength, he should have been able to enter the hidden world. How could he stay in this secular world, unknown to the public? If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have been put in such a difficult situation. He also wouldn't have allowed this girl called Luo Qingtong to be so arrogant in front of him. This martial Uncle Zhang suppressed the anger in his heart again and again. He coldly looked at Yi Qianxian and said, "Dark Revered, do you really want to connive with her to deal with our breeze pavilion? I'm afraid you don't know, but our breeze pavilion is a 6th-class sect in the hidden world. There's a saying, leave a way out for everything, and we'll meet again in the future. Dark Revered, I think that your black field doesn't want to provoke any serious trouble because of this, right?" His eyes were arrogant, and his words contained a hidden threat. Obviously, he was prepared to use the power of the breeze pavilion to suppress Yi Qianxian. Hearing this, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others who had followed behind Yi Qianxian felt their lips twitch. This other party was threatening their master? Breeze Pavilion, a 6th-class sect? They were really fierce. However, their master didn't even place the entire hidden world in his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that he found it troublesome, and didn't want to be seen through by the people of the hidden world Star Dream Branch Hall, and cause unnecessary trouble for himself, then master wouldn't have stayed in the secular world of True Spill Continent. Now this was the reason for the other party to threaten their master? Everyone looked at him as if he was an idiot. When Martial Uncle Zhang saw this, he thought that Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were stunned by his words. He immediately snorted proudly and waved his sleeves at the people of the Breeze Pavilion. Let's go. Let's see who dares. Before the word block could leave his mouth, he instantly fell to his knees with a bang. His legs sank deeply into the ground. Because he had used too much strength, the bones in his legs were broken. In an instant, Martial Uncle Zhang let out a miserable shriek. Yi Qianqian's cold voice rang out along with his voice. Make them crawl out on their knees. You guys stay here and guard them. His words were naturally directed at Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others. The latter and the others hurriedly responded. Yi Qianqian's eyes swept over the shocked and incredulous people of the Breeze Pavilion. He raised his hand and pulled Luo Qingtong into his arms. Then, with a flash, he disappeared with the young girl. He had allowed the other party to dawdle with Luo Qingtong for so long because he didn't want this woman to hold back too much anger and grievances. Now that the matter had been resolved, it was time for him to settle the accounts between them. Bang! Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianqian's figures appeared in a room. Luo Qingtong was thrown onto the large bed in the room by Yi Qianqian. Then the man's slender figure pressed down on her. Boy toy ha? Chapter 1639. Cough cough cough. Luo Qingtong was trapped between his chest and the bed. She was instantly shocked by his words. Oh my God! What did she do to this man when she lost control of her mind? Boy toy. Oh my God, what's going on? Cough cough cough. Lord Qianming, there must be a misunderstanding. Listen to me. She hurriedly pressed against Yi Qianqian's chest, but her voice was full of guilt. It was because she did have such an idea in the past. She wanted to keep Yi Qianqian by her side to make love with him. But later, she found that this man was too strong. She couldn't afford to offend him, but she could hide from him. So she gave up the idea. Could it be that after she lost control of her consciousness, she accidentally revealed this idea? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She really couldn't imagine what she did to Yi Qianqian at that time. She stole a glance at Yi Qianqian's expression. The man looked at her coldly. No need to explain, I know you weren't conscious at that time. When he said this, Luo Qingtong instantly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew? That's good, that's good. However, just as she breathed a sigh of relief, she heard Yi Qianqian continue. But even if you weren't conscious, it means that you did have such an idea. Uft. Luo Qingtong almost choked on her own saliva. How could this man be like this? How could he speak like this? She hurriedly said. I swear, I really don't have it now. So, Yi Qianming narrowed his sharp eyes and looked at her. You really did have it before? Cough cough cough. Luo Qingtong choked and coughed even harder. Oh my God. This man was getting harder and harder to fool. He had learned to pick the words. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Seeing that Yi Qianqian was about to open his mouth to say something, she quickly raised her hand and hooked it around the man's neck. No, I can't let this man continue to ask. Otherwise, she didn't know how many secrets would be dug out. Luo Qingtong thought as she hooked her arms around Yi Qianming's neck and kissed him. Okay, I have feelings for you, okay? I've been plotting against you for a long time. As she spoke, her voice disappeared between her lips and Yi Qianming's. This man was evolving too quickly. She used to be the one who had him under her thumb, but now it was the other way around. He was also mentally exhausted. However, although Luo Qingtong thought so, her lips curled up slightly. The pair of eyes that were looking at the man were also sparkling. There was a faint smile in them, which was indescribably seductive. Yi Qianqian's eyes darkened the moment Luo Qingtong kissed him. He knew that this woman was cunning. She must have said that on purpose for him to hear. But he couldn't resist being bewitched. When he heard the girl say that she had been plotting against him for a long time, Yi Qianqian's lips slightly curled. Then he clasped the back of Luo Qingtong's head and kissed her deeply. This woman, I really want to swallow her into my stomach just like that. Feeling the man's aggressive plunder, Luo Qingtong chuckled, and almost instantly returned the attack. She was never a woman who would be dominated by others. Even if this person was Yi Qianqian, she wouldn't allow it. Even if this was just a kiss, she wouldn't allow it. Feeling Luo Qingtong's strong response, Yi Qianxian's eyes darkened. Chapter 1640. Lord Evil Doctor. News came from the Chu dynasty. Something happened in the holy capital. As soon as these words came out, Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian's eyes instantly changed. Especially Luo Qingtong, she almost instantly left Yi Qianxian and appeared outside the door of the room in a flash. She opened the door and looked at Bei Qing and Feng Yu outside, asking, "What's going on?" Her eyes were slightly bright and filled with tears. Her lips were slightly swollen. It was obvious at a glance that something had happened inside. Bei Qing and Feng Yu didn't dare to look at her. They quickly knelt down and reported, "We're not too sure. This news just came from the Chu dynasty's holy capital. After we got it, we immediately came to report. But Evil Doctor, you don't have to worry too much. Master has arranged experts around Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. The two of them shouldn't be in danger." Luo Qingtong nodded, then looked at Yi Qianxian behind her and said, "Qianming, I have to go back." This time she remembered to tell Yi Qianxian. Otherwise, if she ran away, this man would explode again. "I'll go back with you." Yi Qianming didn't say anything more. He directly raised his hand and called out the sky-raising flying boat. He took Luo Qingtong and rushed up. The group rushed to the Chu dynasty's holy capital. Swish! Luo Qingtong and the others appeared in the sky above the Chu dynasty's holy capital. At this time, the Chu dynasty's holy capital was already on guard. Luo Qingtong saw Empress Dowager Yanxi and Old Master Luo standing on the city wall with a group of Chu's officials, and immediately rushed over. "Grandfather, grandmother." Luo Qingtong's figure appeared. Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were pleasantly surprised. "Qingtong." They pulled Luo Qingtong over and carefully looked at her. After confirming that she was indeed fine, they let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that their granddaughter had won the 4 Academies event. "Ha ha ha. Good. Old Master Luo let out a long laugh, his heart filled with indescribable joy. With a granddaughter like this, his life was worth it. "Grandpa." Luo Qingtong looked at Grandfather Luo's legs. Although the latter could now walk again, the bones inside were very fragile. After all, they were newly grown bones. No matter how strong they would not be as strong as those that had been tempered by cultivation before. As far as Old Master Luo was concerned, his legs were crippled. At most, it wouldn't hinder their movement. It would be impossible for them to fight. Upon seeing this scene, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Feng Wan, you better be dead. Otherwise, in the future, I will definitely let you know what kind of price you have to pay to touch the people around me." Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. As for Grandfather Luo's legs, she would definitely find a way to heal them. "Grandpa, Grandma, what happened in the holy capital of the Chu dynasty?" Luo Qingtong didn't forget her original intention of rushing back. She glanced around and didn't find anything amiss. There were no traces of battle in the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. What was going on? Didn't they say that something had happened in the holy capital? Luo Qingtong looked at Grandfather Luo with a puzzled expression. The latter was about to speak when a courtier of the Chu dynasty suddenly stepped forward and said, Empress Dowager, it's time." "Time? What time?" Luo Qingtong was about to ask when she suddenly smelled a fishy smell. At this time, huge wooden barrels were moved to the city wall. Luo Qingtong looked inside and found that it was full of large pieces of meat. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" Chapter 1641. The meat seemed to be freshly slaughtered, and it was still dripping with blood. Luo Qingtong didn't know what Old Master Luo wanted to do. "Sai, I can't explain it to you in a short time. You'll know when you keep watching." Old Master Luo waved his hand as he spoke. He didn't know how to explain it to Luo Qingtong, so he simply let her watch on her own. It was about time anyway. He waved his hand as he spoke. In an instant, the huge wooden barrels were lifted up by the soldiers and dumped outside the city walls. Because of the protection of the defensive barrier, The pieces of meat in the barrels all slid out along the light of the barrier. Just as Luo Qingtong was getting more and more confused, Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the others seemed to have sensed something. They looked at the mountains and forests surrounding the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. Boom, boom, boom. A series of earth-shattering noises rang out. These sounds came from the deep mountains and forests near the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. Then, a large group of demon beasts ran out from the mountains and forests surrounding the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. Roar! The demon beasts ran out one by one, racing to the pieces of meat dumped by the people of the holy capital of the Chu dynasty. They ate big chunks. Luo Qingtong looked at this scene and blinked. What was going on? Were grandfather and the others raising a group of demon beasts? When did the relationship between demon beasts and humans become so harmonious? But the strength of these demon beasts, it was a little strange. Luo Qingtong looked at these demon beasts that were obviously very strong. If she remembered correctly, a demonic beast like this could occupy a mountain in the Holy Dynasty's mountain range and become the king of a mountain. And there wouldn't be too many of them. Why were there so many of them here? Luo Qingtong frowned as she looked at these demon beasts. At this moment, she heard old Master Luo's voice ring out again. Bring it up again. This time, buckets of meat soaked in spiritual herbs were brought up. The spiritual energy and medicinal efficacy contained in these pieces of meat were astonishing. Luo Qingtong looked at the pieces of meat being poured down. Suddenly she had an idea. Could it be what she thought? Just as she was thinking, wave after wave of resounding voices suddenly came from the dense forest of the holy capital of Chu. These sounds were either clear or dull, sharp or rough. However, without exception, all of them contain the power to draw upon the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Saint Beast. Luo Qingtong watched as a green flood dragon leaped out and grabbed the largest piece of meat. Soon after, another blue luan flew out with a sharp cry, holding another piece of meat in its mouth. Its pair of wings flashed with a green metallic luster, beautiful and moving as it flapped in the air. Against the sunlight, it was unusually beautiful. Behind them, there was a group of saint beasts, each of which had a piece of spiritual meat in their mouths. Luo Qingtong looked at the large group of saint beasts that had appeared, then looked at the demon beasts that had appeared before. She immediately raised her hand and pressed her forehead, the corners of her mouth twitching. She finally knew why old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi had urgently sent a message to call her back. Oh my! Weren't these demon beasts the ones she had brought back from the border of the far west wilderness? Although there were fewer demon beasts, Luo Qingtong really couldn't be more familiar with those few saint beasts. Chapter 1642. Grandpa, what's going on? She looked at Master Luo. The latter also had a bitter expression on his face. I don't know either. Master Luo said. A few days ago, these monsters suddenly appeared. What's strange is that they didn't hurt people and just sat around the sacred capital. You also know how tyrannical their strength is. In less than 2 days, almost all the monsters in the mountains and rivers around the sacred capital were eaten by them. The corners of Elder Luo's mouth twitched as he walked away. He still hadn't forgotten the scene of this large group of monsters suddenly running out and asking for food. At that time, they thought that these monsters were going to attack the city and were scared to death, hurriedly raising a protective shield. However, these monsters just surrounded them and kept shouting, because they recognized that these monsters seemed to be the same ones that Luo Qingtong had brought to the border to help destroy the Yong army. And these monsters didn't attack them. Master Luo and the others naturally didn't attack these monsters. After figuring out that they were hungry, they began to feed them. Fortunately, the Chu sacred dynasty was vast and rich in resources. Feeding these monsters wasn't a big deal. However, these monsters surrounded the sacred capital, and there was nothing they could do. Although these monsters didn't hurt people, their strength was really too tyrannical. If they suddenly went on a rampage, who could bear it? Master Luo thought about it and sent a letter to Blackfield, asking them to inform Luo Qingtong to come back. Because he didn't want to disturb Luo Qingtong and distract her, Master Luo sealed the news and only sent it to Luo Qingtong now. The people of the sacred capital were trembling with fear for a while. Luo Qingtong listened, frowning slightly as she looked at these monsters. After seeing these monsters, Yi Qianxian also turned his gaze to Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others beside him. The latter and the others had a bitter look on their faces. Master, we swear that we really drove them back to where they came from. How could these demonic beasts appear here again and surround the sacred capital of the Great Chu? They really didn't know. While Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others were explaining to Yi Qianxian, the holy beasts also noticed them. Screech. They immediately saw the girl standing on the city wall. That blue luan let out a cry and was about to swoop down, but when it saw Yi Qianming on the side, it quickly retracted its wings and hurriedly retreated. It looked at Luo Qingtong and screeched again and again. Beside the blue luan, the huge blue flood dragon also raised its head and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong, then roared at Luo Qingtong. Roar. As its roar sounded, the air around the entire Chu sacred capital faintly trembled. The other holy beasts and demonic beasts also cried out in unison. They looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with burning eyes. At a glance, it was obvious that they were coming for her. Luo Qingtong frowned. Could it be that these monsters had deliberately come to seek revenge on her? Deliberately besieging the sacred capital of the Great Chu and waiting for her to appear? She wasn't the only one who thought so. Yi Qianxian and the others also thought so. Looking at the holy beast staring at Luo Qingtong covetously, Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed with cold light. Chapter 1643. Screech. Seeing Yi Qianxian's actions, the sacred beasts were a little anxious in an instant. At this moment, the Qing Yuan suddenly screeched, then turned around and rushed into the dense forest in the mountain range they had just rushed out of. Soon, it picked up a few people and threw them in front of the city gate of the holy capital of Chu. It screeched in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others. Luo Qingtong didn't know what it meant and immediately looked at those people. At this moment, a courtier of the Great Chu suddenly shouted, These are the people of the Great Yong Imperial Secret Service. They are the men of sacrifice and shadow guards they have trained. Look at the insignia of the imperial family on their bodies. As his voice sounded, everyone also saw the insignia on the torn clothes of those people. It was the symbol of the Great Yong Imperial family. These people's strength had all surpassed the Saint Realm. They were wearing black night clothes. At this moment, they were lying outside the city gate of the holy capital of Great Yong with their last breath. Looking at their attire, it seemed that they wanted to sneak into the holy capital of Chu, but were caught by these sacred beasts. With that thought in mind, everyone gasped. If such a group of people who had surpassed the Saint Realm really sneaked into the holy capital of Chu to cause trouble, or attack the people of the Great Chu imperial family, the consequences would be unimaginable. In this way, these sacred beasts could be considered to have helped them. Everyone thought so and suddenly looked at these sacred beasts with some surprise. They didn't know why they did this. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong had vaguely guessed something. You're here for this? As she spoke, she released a little bit of the internal aura of the 9-story exquisite pagoda. In an instant, those sacred beasts and demon beasts all became restless. They looked at Luo Qingtong with fanatical and burning faces. They wanted to rush up, but they were afraid of Yi Qianxian's strength. Screech. The Qing Yuan, which seemed to be the representative, screeched and nodded at Luo Qingtong. Roar. Ong. Behind it, the group of sacred beasts and demon beasts all opened their mouths and roared. Luo Qingtong had a headache when she heard these cries. Both parties spoke different languages, so there was no way to communicate. She frowned as she looked at these demonic beasts. Then, as if she had thought of something, she raised her hand and released Little Pig from the 9-story exquisite pagoda. Plop! Little Pig was sleeping in the 9-layered exquisite pagoda when he was released by Luo Qingtong and fell to the ground with a thud. It was stunned for a long time. When it got up and saw a circle of demonic beasts outside, it was instantly shocked. What's going on? Why are there so many demonic beasts? He widened his eyes, quickly discovering that these demonic beasts were the same ones that Luo Qingtong had lured over to destroy Great Yang's army. But hadn't Yi Qianxian driven these demonic beasts away? Why are they here again? While it was thinking, it heard Luo Qingtong say, "Tell them that I can give them some of the aura inside the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, but they have to be loyal to me. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it." Luo Qingtong looked at these demonic beasts outside the city. Now that she knew the purpose of these demonic beasts, she had a way to deal with them. Seeing that these demonic beasts didn't cause any trouble, Luo Qingtong could give them some of the aura inside the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. But these demonic beasts had to be loyal to her. Chapter 1644. Luo Qingtong couldn't hope that they would continue like today and not cause trouble or harm Grandfather Luo and the others. She had to get rid of all the unstable factors. If these demonic beasts were willing to swear allegiance to her, then she could give them the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda to help them become stronger. If they were unwilling, then forget it. Seeing that they didn't harm the people of the holy capital, she could let them go. But if there was a next time, she wouldn't let them go. Roar! Hearing Little Pig's words, the sacred beasts were in an uproar. They looked in Luo Qingtong's direction and screamed sharply. "What's going on? What did they say?" Luo Qingtong looked at Little Pig. They said they're willing to use the information of a treasure land in exchange for the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Little Pig said honestly. In other words, they're not willing to submit? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. If that's the case, then let them go. The aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda was extraordinary. If these demonic beasts weren't willing to submit to her, Luo Qingtong would definitely not give them the aura. This was to prevent them from getting greedy and doing something irreparable. Hearing this, the demonic beasts became even more restless. They looked fiercely in Luo Qingtong's direction. Their thirst for the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda made them lose their rationality. They even ignored the dangerous aura emitted from Yi Qianxian's body. Roar! The azure flood dragon suddenly roared and flew toward Luo Qingtong. As for the blue wand beside it, it led the saint beasts around it to attack Yi Qianren at the same time. They didn't want to deal with Yi Qianxian, but they didn't want him to help Luo Qingtong. These sacred beasts weren't weak, so they could naturally see that Yi Qianxian valued Luo Qingtong. As long as they had this girl in their hands, the other party would definitely hesitate to attack. At that time, they would be able to get what they wanted. Roar! The sacred beasts were very fast. The group of people from the Great Chu didn't expect that the sacred beasts, who had been docile for so long, would suddenly go berserk. They didn't have time to react. Moreover, because of the sacred beasts' actions from the Great Yong Imperial Secret Service, they had removed the defensive barrier. After all, every second the barrier required a large amount of resources. With Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian's sacred beasts, the people from the Great Chu naturally let their guard down. Unexpectedly, an unforeseen event happened at this moment. Qingtong. Old Master Luo panicked and wanted to push Luo Qingtong away. However, Luo Qingtong's father. "I'm fine, Grandpa." Qingtong said Luo Qingtong's to Luo Qingtong. Beasts are beasts. As expected, their wild nature is hard to tame. Since you don't want to submit, then I'll beat you until you're completely convinced. Get down. Following Luo Qingtong's clear shout. In her mind, a power that was extremely deterring to demonic beasts suddenly appeared. In an instant, the azure flood dragon, which was about to grab her with its claws, wailed and fell to the ground with a bang. Chapter 1645. Boom, boom, boom. The mountain-like figures were instantly sent flying several hundred meters away. The demon beasts spat out blood as they wailed and rolled on the ground. They heavily smashed into the dense forest and the ground in front of them, breaking countless trees in their wake. In just an instant, not a single demon beast could be seen within several hundred meters of Yi Qianxian. "These pig heads are really courting death," Little Pig muttered as he watched from the side. "Attacking Luo Qingtong in front of this man? Are they tired of living? Even I don't dare to provoke this man, okay?" Where did these pig heads get their courage from? As Little Pig muttered, he completely forgot that he was also a pig right now. And a super cute one at that. Who are these pig heads scolding? Submit or die. Luo Qingtong's voice was ice cold. Yi Qianxian stood beside her. He didn't say anything and only released his aura. In an instant, those demon beasts felt as if their hearts had been ruthlessly struck by a heavy blow. An extremely dangerous feeling enveloped them, causing them to repeatedly cry out and nod their heads. There was no need to choose between life and death. These demon beasts didn't know that Yi Qianxian was so strong. They also didn't know that Luo Qingtong was not to be trifled with. They didn't feel that suppressive force before. And when Yi Qianxian drove them away, he didn't use such a heavy hand. This caused them to misjudge and think that they had an opportunity to take advantage of. These demon beasts whined and submitted. The group of Great Chu people who stood on the city wall were dumbfounded. When those demon beasts pounced on them, they thought that they were in trouble. After all, they knew how powerful these demonic beasts were. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, all these demon beasts would be sent flying and submit? They looked at Yi Qianxian with fear and reverence. At the same time, they were also very respectful towards Luo Qingtong. After all, they also saw how the azure flood dragon fell to the ground. The holy conferred princess was truly amazing. The people of Great Chu rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, they knew how to repay the kindness, and did not forcibly separate Grand Yin and Empress Dowager. Instead, they recognized Old Master Luo and let him marry Empress Dowager. Otherwise, how could the Great Chu be in its current state? Thinking of how Great Yong had been destroyed by the Black Field, everyone looked at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian with reverence. Grandpa! Luo Qingtong pulled Grandpa Luo over. The latter still had a lingering fear in his heart, as he glared at the group of demonic beasts. Qingtong, let's just kill all these demonic beasts. Thinking of the violent counterattack of these monsters just now, Grandfather Luo is very opposed to Luo Qingtong accepting them. These demonic beasts were too unruly, and their strength was tyrannical. If something were to happen to Luo Qingtong one day, wouldn't she suffer a backlash? It was too dangerous. Grandfather Luo still didn't know that Luo Qingtong could help others contract demonic beasts. He immediately coaxed Luo Qingtong. Good granddaughter, be obedient. These demonic beasts can't be kept. If they suddenly counterattack in the future, it will be bad for you. Grandfather Luo said with a frown. Luo Qingtong listened and laughed. She looked at Grandfather Luo with curved eyes, and her heart was indescribably warm. Chapter 1646. No matter what, he would always think of her first. Grandpa, it's okay. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she smiled and leaned over to Old Master Luo's ear, whispering a few words. In an instant, Grandfather Luo's eyes widened. You, Qingtong, are you serious? Old Master Luo looked at his granddaughter's smiling face and stuttered. Not for anything else, but because what Luo Qingtong said to him just now was really too shocking. His granddaughter could actually help others contract demonic beasts. What kind of ability was this? His granddaughter was also a beast tamer, and a high-level one. In an instant, Grandfather Luo was almost stunned. When Luo Qingtong told Grandfather Luo about this matter, she already knew that he would be like this. She smiled and whispered to him, Grandpa, lower your voice. This will be our Luo family's secret in the future. Luo Qingtong didn't want her ability to be exposed so quickly. The threat of Beast Tamer King Valley had not been eliminated yet. And one more secret trump card was a good thing for her, Grandfather Luo, and everyone in the Luo family. Luo Qingtong liked to see those enemies come over proudly and arrogantly, only to be slapped in the face in the end. Okay. Grandfather Luo repeatedly agreed. He also knew the seriousness of this matter, so he wouldn't casually reveal it. For example, he hid the matter of the spiritual chi gun and spiritual chi bullets very well, and also his granddaughter's identity as evil Dr. Ghost Eye. However, with a bitter face, Grandfather Luo whispered to Luo Qingtong, Tong, you don't have to hide this from your grandmother, right? Because of the spiritual chi gun and spiritual chi bullets, as well as Luo Qingtong's identity, He almost had his ear pulled off by Empress Dowager Yanxi. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt pain when she saw him, he didn't know how she would fix him. If he still hid it from her, Grandfather Luo felt that his ear that was pulled before was faintly hurting again. No need. Luo Qingtong smiled and looked at the bitter face of Old Master Luo. I'm going to let you and Grandma contract the Green Flood Dragon and Green Yuan respectively. She believed that Empress Dowager Yanxi would know what to do. As for the other demonic beasts, you can choose some of the talented and loyal disciples of the Luo clan to form contracts with. Luo Qingtong would bring half of these demon beasts to the far west wilderness to contract with Tianxia's people. The more trump cards she had, the better. That way, she would have the confidence to face danger in the future. In this world, the winner was king, and the strong were respected. She would never be a weakling. Not in the past, not now. Luo Qingtong made these demon beasts swear an oath of allegiance with their hearts and souls, and then let them disperse into the jungle by themselves. Then Luo Qingtong took Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi into the jungle, and helped them form contracts with the Green Flood Dragon and Green Yuan respectively. The two most tyrannical holy beasts were very unwilling at first, but after Luo Qingtong helped them form contracts, they found that what Luo Qingtong helped them form contracts was actually a heaven and earth contract, and they instantly cried out excitedly. A heaven and earth contract was the highest level of contract. Their growth and advancement were not restricted in any way, and at the same time, they could complement each other with their master. Chapter 1647. The two sacred beasts instantly acted as if they had picked up a treasure, treating Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi with great enthusiasm. Not for anything else, but these two people were Luo Qingtong's grandfather and grandmother. With the girl's ability, would their strength be weak in the future? That was absolutely impossible. The sudden change in the attitude of the two sacred beasts surprised Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. However, they didn't know the difference between a heaven and earth contract and an ordinary contract, so they didn't think much about it. They only thought that this was a normal situation after contracting. The other demonic beasts that Old Master Luo had chosen to contract with also let out excited howls, and all of them became extremely obedient. The remaining demonic beasts that hadn't contracted with Luo Qingtong changed from their initial rejection to envy. They all surrounded Luo Qingtong and howled, indicating that they also wanted a master. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian emitting a cold intent from the side, these demonic beasts would probably be able to bury Luo Qingtong. And this excitement reached its peak when Luo Qingtong drew out the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda for them to devour. Roar! Beast roars sounded one after another, and in an instant, the injuries on the demonic beasts recovered. Not only that, several demonic beasts that were close to the bottleneck of their strength directly broke through with the help of the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Pop pop pop. Sounds like butterflies breaking out of their cocoons sounded. These demonic beasts all broke through their current ranks, and they instantly looked at Luo Qingtong with indescribable excitement. Of course, this was also because it was their first time coming into contact with the aura of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, so there was such an obvious nourishment and breakthrough effect. It wouldn't be so obvious if it happened again. However, it was still very beneficial for their strength advancement in the future. If they could eat from time to time, their strength breakthrough time would be much faster than before. His own potential would also increase. These demonic beasts all roared excitedly to the sky, causing the entire Great Chu sacred capital to not know what was going on. They didn't think that Luo Qingtong could actually help others contract demon beasts. Therefore, although it was very strange that Luo Qingtong could subdue these demon beasts, they didn't think too much about it. After helping Grandfather Luo and the others form a contract with these demonic beasts, Luo Qingtong also learned about the treasured land that they were talking about. Northern region. Bright Moon Island? Luo Qingtong raised her hand and rubbed her chin. According to those demon beasts, just a few days ago, there was a sudden burst of spirit qi that only they could sense in the Northern Territory. The reason why they knew the name Bright Moon Island was because they had heard about it from the demonic beasts that had flown over from other places. They wanted to use this information to exchange for the aura of the ninefold exquisite pagoda with Luo Qingtong, but they did not expect that the latter only wanted them to pledge their allegiance. If they had known that Luo Qingtong could help them form a contract with others, would they have gone through so much trouble? They would have pledged their allegiance long ago, okay? Just as Luo Qingtong was deep in thought, somewhere outside the sacred capital of the Empire of Qin, several figures with fierce auras appeared. I've asked around. Elder Xie and the others disappeared when they were chasing a girl named Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1648. Humph. The figure with the sharpest aura coldly snorted and said, "What grand meeting of the 4 academies? It's just those sects of the 6th grade and below." After finding it difficult to recruit disciples from the hidden worlds, they set their sights on the secular lands of the true Spill continent. They want to find some good seedlings. In these years, they've recruited many good disciples from the secular lands. But those people, compared to the ordinary disciples of our hidden worlds, are only mediocre. The man's voice was very dismissive. He looked down on this so-called grand meeting of the 4 academies. Only in the secular lands of the true Spill continent, where the spiritual energy was so barren, would the sects of the 6th grade and below that were forced to come to the secular lands to recruit disciples. In the eyes of the people of the secular lands, a 6th grade sect was already considered a top sect. They were really ignorant and foolish. He coldly snorted. He didn't care about Luo Qingtong's identity at all. This was also because the Great Qi Empire was far away from the other 3 dynasties. Although the people of the Empire of Qin knew that Luo Qingtong had won, they didn't know the specific details. Otherwise, if this person knew the strength that Luo Qingtong had revealed and the identity of the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he wouldn't have been so disdainful and careless. After all, to be able to cultivate to such a degree in the barren secular lands, and to have such an ability in alchemy, Luo Qingtong's future was absolutely limitless. Her talent and strength were simply formidable to a terrifying degree. Good. Since we know that the other party has been in contact with Elder Xie before, and that they have a grudge, we'll immediately go to the holy capital of the Great Chu dynasty, and find the other party to clarify this matter. The matter in the land of the fallen immortals is related to the future development of our celestial palace. We can't make any mistakes. We have to find out who got the information in the end. Elder Xie, who killed him. We must eliminate all those who know of this information. The man's voice was sharp, and there was a hidden killing intent. Yes. The other 2 celestial palace people answered in unison. The 3 of them disappeared outside the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. In Great Chu's holy capital, Luo Qingtong made arrangements for all the demon beasts, and returned to Great Chu's imperial palace with Yi Qianxian and grandfather Luo. However, what Luo Qingtong didn't expect was that as soon as she returned, she was kicked out of her room by her grandfather. That was right. He was chased out. Luo Qingtong stared at the closed door in front of her. She didn't know what her grandfather wanted to do. He said that he wanted to talk to Yi Qianxian about some men's topics, and then chased her out. Grandpa, don't you know that you're being sexist? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. But in the end, he didn't go against his grandfather's wishes. Ever since she transmigrated to this strange world, she could feel grandfather Luo's love and care for her. Needless to say, this time, it must have something to do with her, so he deliberately sent her away. Luo Qingtong could roughly guess what grandfather Luo wanted to say to Yi Qianxian. Her lips curved slightly, and she turned to walk out. It felt good to have family. Luo Qingtong quite liked this feeling of grandfather Luo worrying for her. It was very novel. Luo Qingtong casually strolled around Great Chu's imperial palace. Seeing that it was her, the patrolling guards all saluted and let her pass. Luo Qingtong nodded at them. Chapter 1649. Luo Qingtong walked straight ahead. They walked all the way until they reached an extremely remote courtyard before they came to a stop. Since you are here, why don't you show yourself? Luo Qingtong looked indifferently at the place where the rockery was located not far away. The bloody light in her eyes flickered faintly. Under her eye technique, 3 figures were clearly revealed. These people had just appeared near her, and followed her all the way. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. Luo Qingtong? The 3 people didn't expect that they would be discovered by Luo Qingtong. They walked out of their hiding places, and looked at Luo Qingtong with puzzled eyes. However, they didn't think too much about it. After all, this was the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Perhaps they didn't pay attention and exposed their tracks, and were discovered by the other party. The 3 people didn't pay too much attention to it. They stared at Luo Qingtong. Their figures flashed and surrounded Luo Qingtong. At the same time, the aura around them spread out and enveloped the courtyard to prevent the movement here from spreading out. You are Luo Qingtong? The man in the lead said. His gaze was arrogant, and the way he looked at Luo Qingtong was indescribably superior. His aura was blocked. It was the cultivation of the Sage Master Realm. The aura of the 2 people beside him was also the strength of the Sage Master Realm. 1 Sage Master Realm, 2 Sage Masters. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at the 3 people calmly and said, I am and you are. Humph. You don't need to know who we are. You just need to tell us that a few months ago, you and a Celestial Palace's Elder Xia had a conflict in the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. That Elder Xia chased you and left. Where did he go after that? The eyes of the Sage Master Realm expert flickered with a fierce light. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with cold killing intent. The other party couldn't be left alive. No matter what Luo Qingtong's reply was, they would eliminate the source of trouble. They didn't want to accidentally leak the information and alert the enemy. After all, who knew if the other party was related to the murderer of Elder Xia? Just in case, they wouldn't let Luo Qingtong go. Oh, you are from the Celestial Palace. Luo Qingtong looked at the 3 people with her lips slightly curled. So that's it. She had even said that 3 experts had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and were tailing her. She was still thinking about how to capture them alive for interrogation. This saved her a lot of trouble. Luo Qingtong smiled and said to them, You want to know who killed Elder Xia, right? The moment her words left her mouth, the eyes of the 3 from the Celestial Palace lit up. You know? The eyes of the Sage Master Realm expert flickered as he looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Okay, tell us. From now on, you will be a member of our Celestial Palace. I can make the decision to accept you into our Celestial Palace. You should know that our Celestial Palace is a 3rd-class sect. And you can only enter a 6th-class sect when you participate in the 4 academies gathering. The Sage Master Realm expert said proudly, As long as you can enter our Celestial Palace, your future will be limitless. Of course, she had to be alive to enjoy it. The Sage Master Realm expert sneered inwardly. He was waiting for Luo Qingtong to say the other party's name. Then he would immediately kill her. Chapter 1650. Luo Qingtong looked playfully at the killing intent flashing in the eyes of the Sage Master. The other party probably thought that she had concealed it very well. However, regardless of whether the other party wanted to kill her or not, she wasn't going to let these 3 people from Celestial Palace go back. She had to take precautions before it rained, and she had to remove the roots when cutting weeds. These people wanted to kill her, but how could they know that she didn't want to let them go? Luo Qingtong pretended to be flattered. Then, she seemed to think of something and said awkwardly, But I swore to the heavens that I wouldn't reveal that person's name in order to survive. How about this, Senior? Come over and I'll write it down for you, she said to the Sage Master. Okay. The Sage Master wasn't afraid that Luo Qingtong would play any tricks. The other party was only in the Sage realm, and wasn't worth mentioning in front of the 3 of them. Moreover, Luo Qingtong's words were logical. The murderer killed their people from Celestial Palace, and was naturally afraid of revealing his identity. If Luo Qingtong didn't do anything and was released by the other party, they would still be suspicious. Now that they heard Luo Qingtong say that she swore to the heavens that she wouldn't reveal the other party's name, they immediately felt relieved. Okay, write it down. As they spoke, they came to Luo Qingtong's side. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at the 3 Celestial Palace experts who were already very close to her, and nodded with a smile. Senior, look. As she spoke, she suddenly raised her hand and waved. In an instant, the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood appeared in her hand, and the life and death Yin-Yang sword was also in her hand. Heaven-seizing style. Luo Qingtong directly slashed her sword at the weakest saint amongst them, and she killed him on the spot. At such a short distance, the other party was caught off guard. Even that saint master and the other saint realm expert didn't react in time. They only recovered from their shock when that saint realm expert perished. That saint expert was shocked and furious. He never thought that Luo Qingtong would actually have this kind of strength. The other party was merely a saint realm expert. How could he suddenly unleash such a powerful attack that far exceeded his own strength? How did she do it? What was with the sudden burst of power in her body? His heart was filled with shock and anger. He almost immediately wanted to attack Luo Qingtong. However, before he could do anything, in an instant, a figure rushed out from behind him and pounced on him, hugging him tightly. This black figure was none other than the Saint Realm puppet that had devoured Feng Yuan earlier. The latter had been refined into a corpse by a living person, so he was filled with resentment. If there was no one to restrain it, after devouring the corpse refiner, it would start a massacre and bring disaster to the world. Luo Qingtong took control of him after he devoured Feng Yuan. Right now, he suddenly rushed out, immediately restricting this sacred expert's movements. Bang! When this sacred expert was hugged by the sage master puppet, Luo Qingtong's other attack slashed down. In the blink of an eye, he killed another saint who was retreating in panic. In an instant, that sacred expert went mad. "Ah, bitch, I'll kill you." He stared at the corpses of the two Saint Realm experts with bloodshot eyes. And then his aura suddenly erupted and instantly blasted away the Saint Realm puppet he was holding tightly to. Chapter 1651. Bang! Just as he leaped towards Luo Qingtong, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. With a wave of his sleeve, he was sent flying. Qianren, seeing the man's figure in the air, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up. She retracted the attack she had been preparing. When the sage sovereign came into contact with Yi Qianxian's aura, he couldn't help but tremble. Strong. Too strong. He looked in Yi Qianxian's direction in horror. He could feel that the other party didn't use any strength to send him flying. Under such circumstances, wouldn't it be easy for the other party to kill him? He didn't dare to stay any longer. He didn't even dare to look at Yi Qianxian. He got up and ran out. However, as soon as he turned around, the sage sovereign puppet he had sent flying suddenly pounced on him and bit him. Ah! That Saint Sovereign Realm expert of the Celestial Peak Palace let out a blood-curdling scream as he was pushed down. Then, the whole place was filled with mournful screams. Soon he didn't make any sound. You don't want to keep him alive? Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong. He was just about to capture the other party. No need. Luo Qingtong shook her head. She already knew the other party's intentions. There was no need to keep him alive to force a confession. As for making the other party submit, she had no intention of doing so. The other party was from Celestial Palace. If they pretended to submit, and then fled back to Celestial Palace, they would risk being punished to death by the Heavenly Tao to tell the other people in Celestial Palace about her whereabouts. Things would become troublesome. Luo Qingtong didn't want to take this risk. Therefore, she didn't plan to let the 3 Celestial Palace people live. Who are they? Yi Qianxian looked at the corpses of the 3 Celestial Palace people. The other party's strength was not ordinary. Was he from the hidden world? He was talking to Grandfather Luo just now, and did not deliberately spread out his aura to sense the aura of the entire Great Chu Imperial Palace. Otherwise, these 3 people would definitely not be able to enter, let alone attack Luo Qingtong. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. They are from the Celestial Palace. She frowned as she spoke. People from the Celestial Palace were looking for her. She was afraid that she would not be able to hide the fact that she had killed Elder Xia. But it was no wonder. Too many people knew about the conflict between her and Elder Xia. If the Celestial Palace wanted to investigate the cause of Elder Xia's death, they would definitely start with him. Now that she was here, these people from Celestial Palace came directly for her. If she wasn't around, would these people go after old Master Luo and the others? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. No, she had to think of a way to temporarily divert the attention of the Celestial Palace people. At least, she could not trouble old Master Luo and the others while she was at Bright Moon Island in the northern region. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and tapped the back of her hand with her fingers. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. In an instant, her lips curled up and she said to Yi Qianxian, "Qianren, let's go to the sacred capital of the Great Qi dynasty. To give a gift to someone." Luo Qingtong smiled wickedly. She was a very vengeful person. Those people from the Breeze Pavilion came to make trouble for her before, but they let Feng Wuan escape. Then they wanted to seek revenge, and they even distorted the truth and slandered her. This time they would take the blame for the Celestial Palace for her. Chapter 1652. Translation. Yi Qianren looked at the evil aura at the corner of her lips and instantly snorted. He did not know what she was up to this time. However, he did not interrupt Luo Qingtong's excitement. Let this woman do whatever she wanted. Even if the sky fell, he would be there to support it. Yi Qianxian brought Luo Qingtong and disappeared from the Great Chu Imperial Palace. Dark night, Great Qi Dynasty's holy capital. Song Yin was throwing a tantrum where the people from the Breeze Pavilion were. "I don't care. I will make that woman suffer." Song Yin covered her bruised and swollen face. She could not get rid of her resentment. That woman called Luo Qingtong was too audacious. She thought about how she had ordered the people from the Breeze Pavilion to stop Luo Qingtong. Not only had she failed, but she had also been beaten up. The bruises on her face had yet to fade. Why? She was just a woman from the secular world. She was just a little genius. How dare she treat her like this? No matter how powerful that Ming Zun from the Black Field was, could he be more powerful than the entire Breeze Pavilion? He was just bullying the strong cultivators from the hidden world. Song Yin was infuriated. Senior Uncle Zhang's face was also very gloomy. The injuries on his legs had been healed. However, he had been forced to crawl out of the Four Academy's grand banquet. It was too humiliating. He still remembered the extreme humiliation that made him want to kill himself. He had arrogantly gone to find trouble with others. In the end, he had been humiliated. He gritted his teeth as he thought of this. We can't find trouble with that Luo Qingtong for now. That Ming Zun from the Black Field was too powerful. He could not defeat him. However, before Song Yen could voice her displeasure, he had already laughed coldly. I can revoke that Luo Qingtong and everyone related to her from entering the hidden world. He then instructed the people around him. Go and tell the people from the other sects that I suspect there is something wrong with the Four Academy's grand banquet. The result of the competition is invalid. Those who won and can enter the hidden world will all be disqualified. Martial Uncle Zhang's face was very cold. Luo Qingtong's strength had already reached the Sage Realm. It was reasonable to say that she could rely on this Sage Realm strength to directly enter the hidden world. However, she had injured someone from the Breeze Pavilion. As long as he reported this matter, he would be able to prevent her from entering. After all, the strength of a Sage Realm expert was not particularly powerful. As for Luo Qingtong's potential and ability, he was currently the strongest in this secular world. As long as he forced the people from the other sects who knew about this, they would not be able to reveal this matter. The people of the hidden world didn't know her potential and strength, so who would stand up for her? Martial Uncle Zhang thought with a cold smile. He wanted Lin Ming to be trapped in the mortal world of True Spill Continent until he died. So what if he had great potential and strength? If she couldn't enter the hidden world, how much could her strength increase in this secular world? Unless she could obtain a great lucky chance, she would be crippled for the rest of her life. This was the price she and that Ming Zun had to pay for daring to deal with them. Chapter 1653. As Uncle Zhang thought of this, the sneer on his face became even more obvious. Although Song Yen was still very dissatisfied and felt that this was not enough to vent the anger in her heart, This was all she could do now. She did not continue to say anything. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly darted into the courtyard where they were. Who is it? Uncle Zhang was the first to react. He immediately slammed the table and flew out to chase after the shadow. Bang! He chased the shadow out of the courtyard and directly slammed his palm at the shadow. Surprisingly, the black shadow didn't dodge at all. Instead, it raised its hand and threw a huge object at him. Bang! Uncle Zhang's palm slammed hard on the object thrown by the shadow. In an instant, he felt his palm hit the flesh. Before he could react, he heard an extremely sharp voice coming from the side not far away. Murder! Then another extremely angry voice was heard. People from the Breeze Pavilion, you killed people from the Celestial Palace. You and I cannot exist under the same sky. What? Upon hearing that voice, Martial Uncle Zhang was instantly stunned. Even the people from the Breeze Pavilion who had chased after him from the courtyard were stunned. What? People from the Celestial Palace. They looked in the direction of Uncle Zhang in shock, and realized that there was a corpse lying in front of him. Not far away from where the voice came from, there were also 2 corpses lying on the ground. In an instant, the people from the Breeze Pavilion were stunned. Uncle Zhang, you killed people from the Celestial Palace. The disciples of the Breeze Pavilion stuttered. Celestial Palace. 3rd-class sect. Any elder or above would be enough to raise the entire Breeze Pavilion to the ground. Uncle Zhang actually killed people from their sect? Even if Uncle Zhang found out that someone was eavesdropping, he did not have to do this, right? No. It was not me. Uncle Zhang was indescribably flustered and exasperated as the disciples stared at him in horror. How could he explain? This person was not killed by him at all. The person was already dead when he was thrown in front of him. Martial Uncle Zhang only reacted after the palm strike, but it was already too late. Furthermore, he did not expect the other party to be from Celestial Palace. Damn it! Who was it that killed these people from the Celestial Palace and framed him? Martial Uncle Zhang was infuriated. However, no one believed him. This was especially true for those who had followed behind the people of the Breeze Pavilion. They had been attracted by the commotion and the shouts. When they saw the corpses of the 3 people from the Celestial Palace lying on the ground and Martial Uncle Zhang, who was standing not far from the corpses and had obviously fought, they instantly scattered like birds and beasts. They did not want to be silenced by the other party. However, the people from the Breeze Pavilion were too arrogant and bold. He even dared to kill someone from Celestial Palace. Did he think that he was the strongest here, so he got carried away by his own arrogance? With that thought in mind, the crowd dispersed. That Martial Uncle Zhang did not even know who had seen this scene, let alone threaten these people not to say anything. Just like that, he took the blame. In an instant, he was so angry that he almost fainted on the spot. Who the hell set me up? He roared madly, but no one paid any attention to him. Chapter 1654. Not far from the corner of the wall, Luo Qingtong nestled in Yi Qianxian's arms, watching this scene with a sweet smile. The curve of her lips became more and more evil. Qianming, let's go. Let the people of the Breeze Pavilion have a headache on how to explain to the people of the Celestial Palace. With them as a shield, the attention of the people of the Celestial Palace would definitely be diverted. For the time being, they would not notice her side. With this period of time as a buffer, it was enough for her to return from the Bright Moon Island in the northern region. She did not know what was going on there. She hoped that it would give her a surprise. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. As for Yi Qianren, his expression was indifferent as he looked at the crafty and evil woman in his arms. Without saying a word, he leaped and disappeared into the boundless night sky. On the way to the northern region in the Atlas flying ship, Luo Qingtong lay in Yi Qianming's arms and looked at the man in front of her curiously. She asked, "Qianming, what did you say to grandfather?" Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered. After coming out of the Great Chu Palace, Yi Qianming had been a little strange. She did not pay much attention to it before, but now that she was alone with him, she immediately felt it. As for what was strange, Luo Qingtong raised her hand to touch the man's chest. However, before she could touch Yi Qianming, her hand was caught. Nothing. Yi Qianming's expression was indifferent. His eyes were like swords, staring at Luo Qingtong. The dark fire in his eyes surged and surged, but he did not move at all. He only held Luo Qingtong's hand and did not move. Really? Luo Qingtong looked at him and her eyes flickered. Yes. Yi Qianming's eyes darkened. The scene of his conversation with old Master Luo flashed in his mind. Lord, I don't know if you are serious about Bian, or if it is just a temporary interest. In the room, old Master Luo looked at Yi Qianming with a solemn expression and asked. Of course I am serious. Yi Qianming's eyes were cold. If the person who asked this question was not old Master Luo, he would have been sent flying out. His feelings for Luo Qingtong could not be blasphemed. Good. Old Master Luo nodded and looked at him. Then, the Great Lord will marry Hua Wu in the future, right? Of course. Good. Old Master Luo stood up. In that case, Lord, let's not beat around the bush. If anyone dares to hurt her, then I'll fight with my life on the line. Come, but otherwise, please don't touch her. My Bian deserves the best in the world. Lord, I think you should understand what I mean, right? Old Master Luo met Yi Qianming's gaze without fear. He knew that if Yi Qianming did not like Luo Qingtong enough and could not tolerate her, he would immediately attack him. But he still had to say it. His Bian had a hard life and his parents were not by his side. He was the one who brought her up. Chapter 1655. If Yi Qianming really loved Bai, and then he would break all difficulties and marry her. If he couldn't even do this, then the so-called love was just empty words. How could he be with Luo Qingtong? His grandson-in-law didn't need to have a prominent identity or tyrannical strength, but he must love Luo Qingtong. He must be good to her. I understand. Yi Qianming looked deeply into old Master Luo's eyes and finally withdrew his gaze. I won't let her suffer the slightest grievance. The other party was also a treasure in his hands. Before I marry her, I won't touch her. Yi Qianxian's thoughts pulled away from his memories. He looked at Luo Qingtong and his gaze deepened. He would deal with the matters over there as soon as possible. At that time, he would propose marriage to the Luo family. He would not let this woman suffer the slightest grievance. Luo Qingtong thought of several methods but couldn't get any information from Yi Qianxian. She could only give up. Soon, the Atlas flying ship swept into the territory of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court in the northern region. The Sea Emperor Dragon Court was the only force in the northern region. In the far north region, the 800 million miles sea was the place where people of the true Spill continent set foot the least. In addition to the endless sea, there was only the endless sea. The only place where people could live was the islands in the sea. The Sea Emperor Dragon Court was the ruler of the far north region. They called themselves the Sea Emperor, and ruled over all the people in the 800 million miles sea. It was said that the direct descendants of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court had the ability to control water and sea monsters. They could even live underwater for a long time. In the far north region, they were very worshipped and revered. This kind of reverence had even reached a fanatical level. They were regarded as gods. And the central city of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court was Sea Emperor Island. That was the capital of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. As for Bright Moon Island, Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian, and the others traveled all the way, but they didn't hear anything about it. If not for the fact that those demonic beasts were already loyal to her, and coveted the aura inside the 9-story exquisite pagoda, they would never tell her fake news. Luo Qingtong would have thought that she had been deceived. She thought for a moment, and decided to go to Sea Emperor Island to take a look. This was the central royal city of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Perhaps they would be able to find some clues related to Bright Moon Island there. Yi Qianxian naturally had no objections. He had originally come here to accompany Luo Qingtong. Wherever the girl went, he would go. The two of them rarely went out together. In addition, Luo Qingtong had already blamed the Celestial Palace incident on the people of the Breeze Pavilion. For the time being, There was no need to worry that the other party would cause trouble for grandfather Luo. Yi Qianxian also arranged for the experts of the Black Field to stay by grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi's side. Luo Qingtong didn't have any burdens in her heart, so she naturally wasn't very anxious. The two of them traveled all the way to see Emperor Island. In the Great Qi dynasty's holy capital, Martial Uncle Zhang was so angry that he almost had a cerebral hemorrhage after being framed by Luo Qingtong. He returned to the place where he and the others were staying. When he thought of the people of the Celestial Palace who could come to deal with him at any time, he instantly trembled with anger and fear. Bastard! Don't let me find out who framed me. Otherwise, I'll make her suffer a fate worse than death. I won't let this go. I won't let this go. He roared crazily. Hearing his words, Song Yan's heart suddenly jumped. Chapter 1656. Martial Uncle, I think that this was most likely done by that Luo Qingtong. Her eyes were filled with malice as she instigated. Martial Uncle, you see, in the mortal world of True Spill Continent, we don't have any enemies. There is only that Luo Qingtong who tried to deal with us before. I think that these 3 Celestial Palace people were killed by that Blackfield underworld revered. She deliberately framed us. You see, we are from the Cool Breeze Pavilion. She doesn't dare to deal with us openly, so she can only use such shady methods. She wants to borrow a knife to kill us and have those people from Celestial Palace deal with us. Martial Uncle, this woman's heart is too dark. She wants you to die. Song Yan spared no effort to incite. In truth, most of what she said was nonsense. In this 4-courtyard meeting, there were many people from the other sects of True Spill Continent. They were extremely arrogant and wanton, who knew who they had offended and who they had been framed by. But no matter who it was, she had to say that it was Luo Qingtong, who told her to offend her before. With such a good opportunity, she had to have Martial Uncle Zhang ruthlessly teach her a lesson. Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Uncle Master Zhang's face instantly darkened when he heard her words. Slut. He fiercely clenched his teeth. That stinking girl. He was afraid of Underworld revered strength and let her go. He didn't want to cause trouble for her, but she actually came to deal with him. This Martial Uncle Zhang was in a rage at this moment. He was like a mad dog that was eager to bite someone. As soon as he heard Song Yan's words, he immediately believed her. Or rather, whether he believed her or not, he needed a place to vent his anger. Investigate for me. Where is that stinking girl? I don't believe that Ming Zun can stay by her side all the time. Don't give him a chance. Otherwise, he would make her suffer a fate worse than death. Yes. Martial Uncle. As Song Yan saw that she had succeeded, she was secretly overjoyed. She quickly replied, We will definitely investigate carefully. Luo Qingtong, just you wait. She was extremely pleased with herself. In the northern region, Luo Qingtong was still unaware of this. She was strolling around Sea Emperor Island with Yi Qianxian, Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the others followed them from a distance. The Sea Emperor Island occupied an extremely large area. It was almost like a giant beast crawling in this vast sea. It was surrounded by 4 islands that looked like guards. It was said that when the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court was first established, the first Sea Emperor controlled countless sea monsters, controlling seawater and sand at the same time, piling up and expanding the island. At that time, this was regarded as a miracle. The Sea Emperor's Dragon Court had also established itself as the ruler of the far north. For so many years, the people of the northern divine region had relied on the sea for their livelihood. Regardless of whether they were cultivators or ordinary people, their reverence and respect for the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court had never disappeared. Luo Qingtong held Yi Qianxian's hand. While listening to everyone's praise for the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court, she secretly inquired about Bright Moon Island. Yi Qianxian, who was beside her, wore a golden mask on his face. His handsome face was completely hidden behind the mask. But even so, it couldn't hide his innate elegance. Everyone who passed by, regardless of whether they were men or women, all gathered their gazes on him. Yi Qianren turned a blind eye to these gazes. Chapter 1657. Luo Qingtong suddenly heard a series of earth-shattering cheers coming from the front. It was extremely loud. "Auntie, what's going on? Why is it so lively in front?" Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian had just landed on the island and didn't know what was going on. Luo Qingtong was chatting with an old auntie and asked immediately, "Oh, this is the Sea Emperor ritual." The auntie smiled at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian and said, "You two are from the outside, right?" The Sea Emperor ritual is a big event in the northern region. Everyone knows about it. Today is the birthday of our Sea Emperor Island. It's also the day that the Sea Emperor will come to the northern region and seek for the well-being of the northern region. On this day, all the islands will hold a grand Sea Emperor ritual. Among them, our Sea Emperor Island will hold the grandest one. All the important figures in the Sea Emperor's royal court will attend, including the princes, princesses, and concubines. It's rare for outsiders like you to see it. You can go and have a look. The auntie smiled and said, "The Sea Emperor ritual hasn't officially started yet. There's still time." As she spoke, she leaned closer to Luo Qingtong and whispered, "Miss, is this your husband beside you? Sigh, I know he must be very handsome with one look. Hurry up and bring him to the Sea Emperor ritual. May the Sea Emperor bless the two of you for a long time. I'm afraid that a little vixen will kidnap your husband." Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. Before she could reply, she felt her hand being pulled by someone. Yi Qianxian pulled her towards the direction of the cheers. Hey, what are you doing?" Luo Qingtong tried to hold back her laughter as she followed him. "I'll give you a chance to beg others to not let a vixen kidnap me." Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent, but his gaze towards Luo Qingtong was abnormally deep. The two words husband from the auntie just now made him feel very comfortable in his heart. Especially when she urged Luo Qingtong to hurry up and go to the Sea Emperor ritual, so that he wouldn't be kidnapped by others. He felt even more comfortable. Luo Qingtong couldn't hold it in anymore. "Haha, you also believe in this?" She looked at Yi Qianren teasingly, and then realized that the man's face had darkened. All right, let's go. I'm also curious about the sea. I'm curious about the Sea Emperor ritual." At the same time, they wanted to go there to inquire about the Moon Island. On Luo Qingtong's, Luo Ming'an's was on the island. As Luo Qingtong said this, she tiptoed and kissed the man's chin with a smile. Only then did Yi Qianxian's expression turn for the better. He snorted coldly and pulled Luo Qingtong into his arms. Then he rushed towards the direction of the Sea Emperor ritual. However, Yi Qianxian probably didn't expect that such a thing would happen at the Sea Emperor ritual. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have gone with Luo Qingtong. The two of them rushed towards the direction of the Sea Emperor ritual. The closer they got, the louder the cheers became. When the two of them arrived at the venue of the Sea Emperor ritual, they saw a sea of people. Countless people surrounded a square in front of them. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.